Good luck with that. No. Oh, you guys streaming right now? All right.
Okay, it's 5:30, so we're going to start this meeting, special meeting, the Nampa School District Board of Trustees. I want to make sure, no feedback, is that coming from us? It's just, that's all right, we'll give it a test run here. Our board clerk is not here, but should we wait for her to get back? She ran out to grab the sign-in sheets. Okay. Well, let's determine if a quorum is present first. Note taker. Oh, there she is. We just started the meeting. We're just going to the first agenda item. No quorum. We have 4 trustees here, so there is a quorum present. So we'll move to agenda 2, which is approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and motioned. Any discussion on that motion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comments. I'm going to make a slight adjustment to this particular item. And we have some sign-in sheets for those who would like to comment on each of the agenda items. So what we're going to do with the public comment section is when we get to that agenda item, that's when we'll allow public comment for that particular item. And then we'll go to the next item, allow public comment for that item. That just kind of keeps it more organized to the particular agenda item. I'll just wait till we get to that agenda item. Hey, any questions on that? Is there any thoughts? Okay. So we'll move to the next action item, which is the next action item is the next agenda item. So the first item under action item is personnel report.
I move that we approve the personnel report.
I second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to that? Okay, that motion is carried. That action item is approved. The next item under action items is interim superintendent. I don't think we need a whole lot of discussion as far as introduction, but in the last board meeting, the board approved Dr. Russell as the interim superintendent. What we need to do in this meeting is what's on the agenda and Dr. Russell, I guess we just start with you as far as let us know what you got.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Chairman Kirkman and trustees, just wanted to share with you some general information around compensation for interim superintendent. Much of this is just general information for your knowledge, but you have a couple of items there in the packet. The first is the current assistant superintendent's contract, and then our former superintendent's contract, so you can get an idea of where those were. And then the last one has an item there that kind of breaks that down if the board were to choose compensation. I think there's a couple of ways they could do it. One is that you could do nothing. Second is you could do a stipend. And if you chose to do a stipend, you would see we broke that down into a daily rate. The difference between the two is about $72.58 on a daily rate. There's 102 days left in the school year, and starting when the interim was appointed back on February 7th, first day, that would left to about 102 days left in the school year. And then below that, you'll see there's what the difference would be for compensation for the remaining months of the school year. We did not start in February, so if we did choose to start, or if the board chose to start in March, it would be the $18.50.73 would be the monthly difference based on the daily rate. Then, just for the board's knowledge, look at superintendent pay for general, where it was in 17-18, where the district was at that time when Superintendent Keller was hired. Nampa was around 6th in the state. I think the salary has been frozen the last couple of years. Nampa has dropped a little bit to about 12th in the state, and just to give you a general idea of where that is. And then if the board were to choose to stay with districts of similar size, and I think the districts that are closest to us are Pocatello and Bonneville, then a general kind of 3% cost of living increase would put the district very close to those other two districts. So again, just general information for the board to consider, and want to just provide some context around compensation.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, any questions from the board? I know it's been presented. I think we also need to consider, I think the board needs to consider length of time and how long. Do we open that up for 6 months? I mean, do we have Greg serve for 6 months, the remainder of the school year? Do we open that for another 18 months? I mean, I think that warrants some discussion from the board. Length of time, and then as a stipend or even a new contract. Go ahead. You have a comment.
Where do you feel most comfortable with that? Have you thought what your preference would be? I think you've given us a lot of options, but right now it's a lot, right? Like, to be a superintendent of our district is a lot, and so have you given thought to that about how you feel that you would want to comment further?
Yeah, I have. I've thought a lot. There are some personal things around my family. I've shared this with a lot of people. I'm going to have 3 teenage daughters coming up, and that worries me a great deal.
It should.
And realizing that the time in the home is not long, and I know the superintendent job does take a great deal of time and demands. But I've also been trained. I've been trained well in the fact that sometimes leadership and stability is really important, particularly in times of transition. I believe that the district could use some stability around the leadership time, and so I would be willing to serve for 18 months if the board would choose to do that. So I think, yeah, I think that's kind of, initially if the board would like to move that way, I would consider that.
Any comments? I have a comment. I would suggest, and this is just my opinion, but I would suggest that Dr. Russell serve for at least the next 18 months. I am concerned about the quick transition in the middle of the school year. I think having Dr. Russell as interim superintendent provides stability for staff, for the administration, and our interactions have been positive, and we've worked well together, and so I appreciate what Dr. Russell has done. So that would be my suggestion. Any comments? And I would also go as a stipend. I think we just keep your current contract and increase the stipend to, and we can discuss the cost, the amount here, but any other comments on it? That's what I would think. Those are my suggestions.
No, I'm in agreement with that. I think that if you're willing to serve for the 18 months, it's been a pleasure to work with you. I enjoy it every time we're together. And working in the context, I think that you have a heart for Nampa and our students. I definitely believe that you'll bring consistency. I've just enjoyed immensely working with you. The communication is phenomenal. I think it would be the easiest to do the stipend, let you finish out the 18-month contract. I mean, the process in its own or in itself for us to find a new superintendent would be lengthy anyway. So I like that idea too. Mandy?
Yeah, I agree, that I think that makes the most sense and doesn't preclude necessarily moving beyond that 18 months either, but allows us as a district and as a community to keep doing what's important, which is educating kids with the solid leadership that Greg's providing, and then moving forward with the process of what will that look like and how will it be as we're looking for a new superintendent.
So I do have 2 people on this sign-up sheet to make public comment on this particular agenda item. I'll read your name. If you don't want to come up, that's fine, but you're more than welcome to come up and provide public comment. I want to give you that opportunity. So the first one on here is William Jarrett. Is William Jarrett here? Come on. If you want to make some comment, just come up here and just... Yeah, this one, oh, you had signed up on the interim superintendent, so should that be on another one?
Yes, it should be,
Okay, I will, that's okay, I'll move your name over here, okay? But it's gonna be at the bottom of the list.
So hopefully you weren't here at 4:30. Hopefully you weren't here at 4:30.
All right, we'll make sure that we give you that opportunity also. And then the other name on here is Patrick Tanner. Do you want to make a comment for superintendent? Okay, all right, very good. So, yeah, you're on that one too. All right, well, that was quick. That's all I have signed up for public comment on this particular agenda item. So one other question I might have is, how long? We say 18 months, but is that like 18 months from January 18th? Or not January 18th, but February 7th. Yes, thank you. From February 7th, 18 months, or do we go to the end of the next school year, or what does that look like?
Didn't we say that we were just going to continue with the length of his contract? Is it? Yeah.
Stay with the length of the contract. So that is,
Yeah.
and then Trustee Pearson has a question? Absolutely.
So I was, if we are choosing another superintendent after the 18 months, do we try to find someone during that time? How does that work?
Yeah, I think
So that we don't have a gap?
I would ask Trustee Simpson to speak to this because she's,
Yeah, so I think that would be, allow us the time to start with some committees and doing some work and speaking to the community about, I think it's always important to, in these times when you're looking to hire new or doing new things, right, to visit, like, are the mission and vision and are the job requirements of the superintendent still what we wanted when we hired the last one, right? And so giving our community the opportunity to take a look at those things and setting up the process for that, as that could be happening within the 18 months.
And Chairman, if you guys could talk closer to the mics, it'll be better. Thank you for the audio.
is this close enough?
So if we were to, if his contract was to end at the 18 months, we would have to have somebody ready to take the position after the 18 months. How would that work?
So, for example, I'm just looking at his contract and it ends June 30th of the 2023. June 30th, I think I said 20th. June 30th of 2023. And so then our new incoming superintendent would begin their contract July 1st of 2023.
I want to ask a clarifying question. Aren't you just saying that for now 18 months sounds good, but you're not saying that you wouldn't want to continue after that time? Is that the impression I'm getting right? 18 months sounds like a good round number for you right now, but we will reestablish or reassess later.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, and I'm happy if the board wants to entertain other times, but my thoughts were just through my current
I like that
contract,
too.
but,
I like the term of 18 months too, because it gives us 6 months before we even have to have truly that general conversation so that Greg has time, to
Right.
really see how he feels. Like, I love working with Greg. So I would really just like to see how he gets, like how he feels. And I love that 18 months because it gives us a lot of time to really talk to him, see how it goes, try it on, if you will. I love it.
You probably should talk to his teenage daughters too before we. Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is the 18 months, but what about the stipend versus a new contract? Are we just?
So I just wanted to ask our attorney maybe on that, like as far as the stipend versus the contract. I just am unfamiliar how that works and if there's rules and statutes and policies that say we have to do something a certain way, and making sure we're okay on that front.
Yeah, as far as whether or not to have a new contract, if we started a new contract, I'd prefer the 18 months. And what you do is basically you tear up the old contract and replace it with a superintendent contract with new salary on it. The other alternative is to keep him in place on his current assistant superintendent contract, pay a stipend through the end of this year, and then an additional one through the end of next year. So that's your two choices. Both of them are legitimate. It's a matter of the discretion of the board.
Do we know it, I mean, does it have an impact one way or the other? I'm kind of maybe looking for Gwen in HR, like per se impact, if it's done different ways.
Is that's
I
like
mean,
a
that's-
Randy, is Randy here? Where's Randy? Randy.
Thank you.
Is there a difference in the impact in any way if we do a stipend versus changing the contract, or?
I believe it's total compensation, so I don't think a stipend.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't see you, Gwen, I'm sorry. I was like searching it out.
It's hiding in the dark. I have kind of a silly question though, but the assistant or interim superintendent versus superintendent on official correspondence, on emails, any of that stuff, does that change? I mean, if he can just be superintendent even though it's an interim status with the stipend and not a new contract?
Yeah, actually, technically, you'd want to continue to call him interim superintendent unless you've changed his official title to superintendent through the end of his current contract, which is running under the assistant superintendent contract. So unless we get a new contract as superintendent, the preferred term is interim superintendent,
Okay. Could we just use IS for short?
if you like.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, clarification? Greg, do you have anything you want to add? Excuse me, interim superintendent.
Trustee Kirkman, I don't at this point.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to extend Dr. Russell's contract, or excuse me, to continue Dr. Russell as interim superintendent.
Assistant superintendent.
Thank you. No, isn't it interim super?
The contract is assistant
It
superintendent.
is
though.
assistant superintendent. So really, do I just need to motion for the stipend? Okay. So I motion that we give Dr. Russell a stipend for a difference in pay to bring him to superintendent level. Right? Does that work? Oh, both this year and next school year for the term of his contract.
Do we, from a
I-
specific date?
I'm happy to second, but I just wonder what that salary, superintendent salary is
Oh.
that you're referencing.
Sorry, I felt like we were just going to go to the previous salary, but we did not discuss it. So do we want to have some discussion on that?
I mean, we can discuss it within the motion. It's up to, it's up to you.
I mean, we can discuss it now. I think
Yeah.
the rate here, from what I'm seeing, is 157,545.
So that, I don't think that's the current,
That's with the 3%
correct.
cost of residence. So it'd be 152,957 at the current
Yeah.
superintendent level.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, discussion on whether to add the 3% cost of living or the current superintendent level. We need clarification in the motion. And I would also add from, well, I can't make a motion, but the beginning, starting date, February 7th, when he was appointed as interim superintendent.
So I want to backtrack that
Going
because we
forward.
really didn't discuss salary and I'd like to do more discussion on it. So should I just motion we let it die? Where do we go next?
No, we can discuss it.
Yeah,
We can add it
I'd
to the
really like for
motion.
us to be able to discuss how mutually we feel.
Discussion, comments on the rate, on the pay?
Mandy, I'm specifically looking at you.
I mean, I think probably more than anybody, our community has seen the underfunding of education within the last few weeks, right? So I think people who work in our district are worth a lot more than what their paycheck can hold. I just, have questions around what does this mean? And kind of my negotiation brain is thinking about if, I don't have a problem necessarily with the 3% increase, but what does that look like for the current budget that we're under, talking to Randy, and then also moving forward, and typically practice as long as everything's going well and Greg's doing well, which, I mean, like you guys have stated, and my experience has been that he's doing well.
I think so too.
Is there another, if employees are given some sort of cost of living increase or a raise, the following year, does that include another one? And so I just worry that we maybe don't have all the information possibly from Randy about how that impacts the budget. And I know people will say, Mandy, it's $4,000, but I'm gonna tell you that in that budget, every single penny and nickel gets counted and accounted for, and then it comes from somewhere else. So that's, to me, just wanting to make sure we've already budgeted for $152,900, right? But what does that 3% look like? Does our CFO feel okay about that?
Well, in my
if there
mind-
were an increase.
Goes to ESSER funds too, just because really, like with crisis and like just reading what we are in the media and so on and so forth. I agree.
Randy,
Ra-
maybe can you answer that? If
Randy,
Randy?
you're gonna have to move up
Randy?
a little bit.
So you know you put me in a bad spot when you asking me to tell me my boss how much he's going to get paid and all, right? Honestly, I can't tell you anything about the budget. I mean, there's a big date obviously coming up next week.
Yep.
That's $8 million ask. $4 million of that is, or 3.3 million of that is something that is an ongoing money, right? I will say at this point in time, we haven't had Paula for a while, so that money that hasn't been paid out, that money is just basically there. So $4 grand is really not anything in our world. And so with paying Greg, and the other question is, are we back paying from the day he was there at that rate? And then for the 3% raise, it shouldn't be a big deal. Most of our employees have gotten at least that, so I don't think that's out of line. So I think we should be okay with that.
Thank you, Randy.
What?
Okay with the 152? Is that what you're meaning?
I think we're talking about an additional 3% over that, correct?
Yeah.
And I think that we just got that number was 4,000, correct?
It's at the very bottom of the
4,588.
stipend and superintendent salary info PDF. There's a second page, and you have to scroll down a little ways. Yeah, so that 4,588.
Keep going.
So that's for the year.
There you go.
That's
Thank you.
$4,500
That's why
extra for the
There's
year.
all this space.
Yeah,
For the term of his contract.
which, I mean, would then need to be prorated, right, at the same day, the daily rate would have to be adjusted by that, obviously. It wouldn't just be a simple
So-
addition of that, so it would be less for this current year.
So right now, Paula was at 152,957 with the 3%. That would be 4588 added, and then by the end of his 18 months, he'd have another 4588 to 15754. Is that what I'm reading?
It would just become, that stipend would put him there. I mean, basically he will be prorated from when we put him in his position, and then it'll go through until next year. So, I mean, this year he wouldn't actualize that because we're halfway through the year.
Mr. Chair, may I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Because we are essentially having Dr. Russell step into the shoes of Dr. Keller's previous contract, which also expired at the end of 2023, and we're doing stipends, probably the most efficient thing would be to have the stipend make up the difference between his previous salary and Dr. Keller's salary, which you had made through the end of 2023. And then if we want to look at raises going forward past 2023, that'd be a separate discussion for different fiscal year.
Yeah.
So my thought is, the stipend will make up the difference between his current salary of 136,637 to the current superintendent salary of 152,967. And that would be from February 7th to the end of his current contract, June 30th, 2023. At that point, correct me if I'm wrong, or not necessarily at that point, but when it's time to renegotiate that contract, that's when we could discuss a 3% given input from, you know, budget and things like that.
Is what you're suggesting.
That's my suggestion, yes.
Yeah. And that makes it very clean.
I
Very
agree with
clean.
that. So moved?
What'd you move on?
I loved that too, I loved it.
I would say, Chairman Kirkman, you made a beautiful motion.
Yeah.
That you're not allowed to. Let me see if I can restate
It was just a suggestion.
I'm not sure that I'll have the dates exactly right, so I'm gonna need your help with dates.
Okay.
I move that we, provide Dr. Gregory Russell with an interim superintendent stipend that would begin payment on February
7th.
7th, 2022, through the end of his existing contract, which is June 30th, 2023, to bring his salary to $152,957.
67. Yes. That's exactly.
Oh, and change.
And some change, like 37 cents or something.
I'll include the change.
Okay, a motion's been made
I second.
and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, under action items, is C, which is selection of Zone 2 trustee candidates for interviews. Before we start this discussion, I just wanted to reiterate, and more for informational than anything else, there was a process that this board put out there to the public as to how we would select candidates, and that process for putting, filling the vacancy on the board. So, just quickly, we received a resignation from trustee Mike Kipp on February 5th. We then put out a process that the Board of Trustees asking any eligible community member interested in applying for Zone 2 trustee, open position, to submit a completed application packet to the board clerk by 12 noon on Tuesday, February 22nd. And I think that was roughly about 2-week time period. At that point, and the eligibility requires the candidate be a registered voter in the school district with residency in the zone, this particular Zone 2. And then that link was provided, the information was provided on our website, it was made public. Within 1 or 2 days, I think, on our website, people had the opportunity to go and find out what it would take to apply for that vacancy. We asked for a cover letter in the application packet, a resume, and responses to some questions, and I'm not going to read through each of those just questions. So the next step would be that the reason it would close on the February 22nd, we didn't know how many applications we were going to get, but the purpose of closing it at a specific time and date is so that the trustees would have an opportunity to review those applications. Take a couple of days, a weekend, and then on this at this special meeting, we were going to review those, and if we had a large number of applications, the process is that we would select those applications for interviews, and we would conduct the interviews. We haven't set the exact date, but I think it's going to be next week, March 7th. Of course, that meeting will be noticed, and we'll make sure that everyone has opportunity to attend that. It'll be open session. So that was the process. What we have are 3 applications from individuals in Zone 2. They've all been determined to have met the eligibility requirements. I did want to ask a quick question. Did we get confirmation on that one about register? I think link is, where'd the
Yes,
application?
on candidate Lonnie Dawson.
Yes.
Verification was emailed, but he also brought a paper copy of his voter registration verification today, so we
Okay.
definitely have it.
So he's got those eligibilities. Okay. So at this point, this action item is simply to have discussion about the 3 applicants that have applied for the Zone 2. We do have some public comment, so after discussion, we'll open that up to those who have signed up for public comment. So I'll open that up to the board for comments on those 3 applications. Nobody jump at once. Anything? Nothing?
So they're gonna be here on the 7th, and we can interview them
If we
and meet
decide,
them.
yeah, if we decide to do these interviews, the clerk will set up interview times for, well, it would just be at that meeting in open session.
On March 7th, they'll be present to interview.
Yeah, they'll be here, they'll be like under the spotlight.
Oh, lucky them.
And they'll all be interviewed all at once together, rotating each question. I believe when I had asked each trustee about times and what date would work for them, it was March 7th, and I believe it was at 7 or 7:30 p.m. That
Yeah.
was the start time.
7:30 work for,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll have 7:30 on March 7th. Make sure we get that notice. It'll be another special meeting. And then we will go through the interview process, make a selection on that date as to who the candidate will be. And then at the next regular board meeting, March 14th, is when we will provide that, yes, oath of office. Thank you. Okay, no comments? I do want to address a couple of comments. Well, let's open it up to public comment. So, since I have a couple of people signed up here. Deborah Goodwin, would you like to speak? Okay. 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 Thank you. Patrick Tanner, would you like to speak on this agenda item?
Hello, my name is Patrick Tanner. If any of the trustees would like to meet with me to talk in person to work on some collective priorities to advance student success and achievement as well as the needs of the district, please reach out to me. I really appreciate meeting with each of you. Truly my desire is to move forward together for student success. We can do hard things together, but we are not yet together. A few weeks ago, Chair Kirkman attended a listening session of concerned parents. I appreciate his willingness to attend. One of the questions the facilitator asked each table of attendees was along the lines of, in one sentence, what would you like Chair Kirkman to know about how you're feeling right now? The sentence that was developed at the table I sat at is as follows. It is a bridge too far to recklessly disregard and disrespect the diversity of our student body, the teachers, and the traditions of the district with a political and unwise running of the board that has crossed the line into gross negligence and educational malpractice. For background, the folks at the listening session felt disappointment, betrayal, scared, worried, rage, sad, and distrustful for at least the following distinct reasons. Because of the tone-deaf actions and statements of individual board
Excuse me,
members.
does this have something to do with this particular agenda item, the
does.
vacancy?
It does.
Okay.
That align with a political perspective that devalues public education, students from different backgrounds, and students who enter their school day in a dysregulated state. Because of the way the prior clerk was unceremoniously removed from the meeting in January. Number 3, because of the way that the current clerk, who is working without a contract but with pending court proceedings, was outside of policy and protocol placed in her position. Number 4, because of the way that an environment of power and fear created a culture that Dr. Kipp and Dr. Keller could no
Excuse
longer...
me.
Yep.
Patrick Tanner. So we're talking about these 3 applicants right here
And
for this particular agenda item.
So,
You want to get to what you have to
So-
say about these
so
applicants and the
it-
vacancy?
as I said before, I've hit all 3 of the agenda items in this, so it's kind of intermixed.
Okay. right now, we're talking about this particular agenda item, so if you want to, like, parse that out for the next agenda item, that's fine too, but we're just looking at this. You stop the time? I don't want his time to, I don't want to take up his time. Okay.
So I'll just, sure, I'll parse it out. Because of the way that an environment of power and fear created a culture that Dr. Kipp and Dr. Keller could no longer abide in. And so there was also rhetoric about choosing a Zone 2 trustee who aligns with the perspective of Dr. Kipp. And so at the end of the meeting, Chair Kirkman, you asked for solutions. And so multiple parents were there talking about that we need someone who has similar perspectives of Mike Kipp. And so that is, that's that part of it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Jamie Hosing? Hope I got that last name right. So say your name, 3 minutes, and this particular agenda item.
Okay. Good evening, Chairman Kirkman, trustees. My name is Jamie Hazing.
I'm sorry.
And it's okay. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I am merely standing here because I did not get my email written this weekend. So I appreciate you letting me speak. I wanted to have my voice heard. I'm a resident in Zone 2 in Nampa, and so I have some skin in this game. I was very concerned when I read Mr. Callis's application for the board. He has two, it appears to me, he has two conflicts of interest, one professional and one personal. Idaho Code 33507 talks, Section 3, talks about no spouse of any trustee may be employed by a school district with a fall student enrollment population of greater than 1,200 in the prior school year. Since Mr. Callis is married to a Nampa teacher, this seems to pose a conflict of interest. We have had an unprecedented number of teachers resign their positions throughout this year. I assume this is something that Mr. Callis and Mrs. Callis would not want to do, since in a post on the Facebook page, Nampa Parents and Teachers for Excellence in Education on February 5th, Mrs. Callis wrote, quote, "The ultimate goal should always be students first," end quote. I think we can all agree on that. As a Zone 2 resident, I would like to ask Mr. Callis to remove his eligibility or his candidacy. I would like to see you take him off the list of eligible candidates for trustee in Zone 2.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, I have no one else on the sign-up sheet for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to, that didn't get a chance to sign up? I just want to throw that out. Yeah, come on up. All right, if you break a leg, I don't know if our insurance will cover it. State your name, 3 minutes to the agenda item.
My name is Marco Valle, and I put my name on the hat. But I heard a comment about having to choose somebody with the likes of Mike Kipp, who resigned. No, you choose what's best for the kids. You choose what's best for the kids. And the people here know what's best for the kids. And that's exactly why I'm putting my name in a hat. I'm surprised there wasn't any more names. So I just want to bring that to the table. If you want to contact me, I would like to give you my email address.
We got it.
Okay, and if you guys have it too, because I am an open book, and I have learned to fight for what I believe, and I have learned to fight for my kids. One of them who has thought about suicide many times throughout his school year, his school term, who's disabled and has been made fun of, who's been bullied. So I understand a little bit, but I also understand that I'm from Nampa. I've been in Nampa for a while, and the two people that are running, I don't mean I know do they even know the names of the school? When I saw that the one was from Washington, one was from Alaska, we need more people to be involved from Nampa that have been here.
Okay.
So that's why I put my name in the hat. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Valley. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Discussion?
I just have a question for legal. Is there anything about these applicants that disqualify them legally?
Fortunately or unfortunately, the gives you quite a bit of discretion. It doesn't require you to exclude someone based upon qualifications prior to your application, other than the basic Zone 2 and resident requirements. But it doesn't preclude you from applying law and making limitations upon law to make the process more efficient. So the short answer is you have your discretion as to what criteria you want to place as kind of an overlay on the applications.
So I got a few emails about this particular agenda item, and so any emails that I refer to, and I have printed off all the emails that came to me, at least up until about 2 o'clock today. I don't know if any others. And they will be entered as part of the record as far as our discussion. So I do want to ask a couple of clarifying questions, probably directed at the attorney. And the eligibility, I don't think, is in question. All three candidates live in Zone 2. All three candidates are registered voters. So I think the eligibility question is not there. My question, and I think this is just clarification, is one of these emails says it may be necessary to look outside Zone 2 if that is a possibility. My question is, if we have 3 qualified eligible, well, let's just use the term eligible because we're going to determine qualification through the interview process, but if we have 3 eligible candidates from Zone 2, can we even look outside that zone?
No, you cannot. The only
Okay.
time you can look outside the zone is if there's no eligible candidates that apply.
Okay. Make sure I highlighted. One other comment as I'm looking for my other one here is I was a little bit surprised also that we only got 3 candidates. I was expecting about 12. Yes.
I'm not sure if you want to allow one more comment that just came down. They wanted to know if they could provide public comment after Marcos.
Sure. Who was it?
I'm not sure of their name, but I think they'll come down.
Bessie, is that you? Come on down. State your name, 3 minutes, and to the topic.
I get winded easily, so excuse me. My name is Bessie Yealy, and I'm a mother of 2 Nampa students in the district, one of whom is disabled. Excuse me. Okay, so the reason I came up here to say something is because my KIP had a heart for special education. And I respect what Marco said about having a disabled student in our district. However, if the board chooses to go forward with these candidates, I would like, in the spirit of my KIP, for you to consider special education in your decisions, not just in this zone appointment, but in special education in all of your decisions. I would appreciate that. It's instance, Mike Kipp always brought that into the board meetings, always. And it was a big part of who he was. So if you're going to consider an applicant for this zone, please, please, and spirit of Mike Kipp, consider special education. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the other comment through an email that I received was the ineligibility of one of the applicants. I think it was Mr. Callis, as his wife is currently a teacher. Well, I don't think, and this is just coming from me, I don't think that decision needs to be made between the applicant and their spouse as to what's going to happen if that individual is chosen as a trustee. At that point, the law is your spouse can no longer work for the the district. So at that point, the determination needs to be made, and I don't think that's our decision to make that for them. If that particular applicant is selected to fill the seat, then they need to make that decision of whether or not to withdraw their name and resign from the board the minute they were appointed. I mean, that's a reality that we may have to face, or that the spouse then terminates their employment from the district. But again, I think it's fair. Anyone who has applied, and everyone had an opportunity to apply for this vacancy, anyone who does apply should be given the full consideration through the whole process, rather than trying to preempt somebody who at some point may not be eligible. That decision, though, needs to rest with them. Any comment? Any further discussion?
I would agree. I appreciate when people speak, but the greater good is relative to you for your situation. The greater good is relative to how you feel about yourself. So it's difficult for me. I received more emails about people's idea of my ideologies, people's idea of what I do, people's idea of my philanthropy, people's idea of how, I do or don't feel. And that was really all that I received as far as email about Zone 2, and then also people who said they wanted to apply but didn't. It's unfortunate. I think that we were all looking to take a multitude of applicants. Please don't let your own bias get in the way of moving forward with your decisions.
Mr. Walther, I do have another question. There is an applicant who currently is a bus driver, and the bus company is a contractor with the district. So that particular individual, is he considered an employee as far as the statute is concerned?
That one's a little more nuanced. I'd have to look at it, but if he's strictly an employee and doesn't have any profit-sharing ability through the contract with the district, then there would not apparently be a conflict.
Okay.
That's one I'd have to look at a little bit deeper to be certain. But on the surface, it doesn't appear to be a conflict.
Okay. And if that individual is selected to fill the vacancy, again, it may have to be that decision of that person to terminate their employment with the bus company. And we can, I guess, cross that bridge when we get to it.
That would have to be looked at, but it's possible.
Okay. Okay, just want to make that clear. So, action item. If there's no more discussion, I will entertain a motion. And so we're clear. I'll just let you probably know exactly what you're going to do.
I move that we interview all 3 eligible candidates that filed for the Zone 2 trustee position on March 7th.
I second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We'll set the interviews for March 7th. Okay, the next item on the agenda under action items is board clerk agreement. So, we have a proposed contract by our board clerk, which we had asked her to bring, some information to us. Proposed contract came. We looked at it right after, well, it was put on board docs, made public that day or the day, at the last meeting. It's been open for public input, comment, review, scrutiny, whatever you want to call it, for 2 weeks. And so we need to take some possible actions on this particular item. So I want to open it up first for trustee comments, discussion.
So I have some due diligence that I want to present tonight. I've actually put together a little PowerPoint, but prior to doing that, Mandy, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I have been dying for 2 weeks to hear your thoughts. I can definitely go first because I don't want you to feel that way. It's just difficult when we can't discuss these things, right? And again, just with the amount of respect that I continue to develop for you, especially because you stayed, you didn't quit, because quitting really said, I don't want to work with you and not the other way around. And I cannot tell you how thankful I have been for that, like just beyond. So I'll be happy to do that, or we can discuss first, but that truly is, I've just been dying for 2 weeks to talk to you, I feel like, about this specific thing. But again, like I said, I will happily go first. I do not want you to feel like you have to be on the spot, but I have a fairly lengthy amount of due diligence that I'm going to present.
Thank you, one. I do want to work with you guys, and I think we all want to give back to our community and do right by our students and kids in this district, and that's why we're all here.
Yep.
It's not easy. Education is not easy. I keep running through, like I said a little bit earlier, hopefully this brings insight as to the underfunding in education. This is just one position, one single position, and the amount of discussion and debate and has really been, I appreciate it, right? I hope others are appreciating it, because as I read over the things in the packet from last meeting that our board clerk is wanting to do for us, it's not different than when our previous board clerk did for less than $9,000. It's not any different than what I would say, I would say 90, and I think I'm being generous in my, not generous leaning, there are more people, some people I know that hit the door running and they're the last ones in and last ones out, and they don't have to do a lot in education, and they get their hourly wage and they're done. Every job's gonna have that, right? Where they're not going the extra mile and doing more. But I'm gonna say 90% of the people in this district, and specifically this district, are doing above and beyond. And above and beyond what they're being paid. And that's a system state problem that we have, not just a Nampa problem.
Yeah, I read the master contract.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that brings highlight to this. Something that really just came to my mind. So, I've sat on the negotiation team, actually on both sides. I've sat on the teacher side of the negotiation team in this district. I've sat on the district side. And it's not an easy process, but one, cheer and dance stipends came to mind. And I'm gonna look at Jamie, she's shaking her head, and look at Greg. And it was not a 1-year conversation. 3 years, we've been talking about increasing cheer and dance stipends. Is it point? Now I'm gonna look at Randy. Randy, we increased cheer stipends finally in dance. It was like 0.0125% or something. Like
Yeah.
that,
You're
that
talking about
little.
small. Yeah.
We took 3 years to get there. And I'm talking about that amount of money is minuscule
Sure.
compared to going from, that's what's hard for me. In
Sure.
education, the move, I agree. I would tell you right now, if funding was different, like, yes, let's pay every single person what they deserve. It's really hard for me. It's really hard for me to go from just under 9,000 to a $72,000 contract. Sorry, I mean, and I
If
don't.
we're- Hold on just a
Sorry.
second. If we're ever going to get through this tonight, please, I know where most of you feel. In fact, I think I pretty understand where all of you are coming from. So I think the applause really is not necessary. Appreciate it, but not necessary. So please refrain from applauding. And my apologies for interrupting.
No, I just wanted to say too, it is for an efficiency, and I know folks want to be able to voice and to advocate for the side that they're on, but just out of respect for the meeting and the process and the time, like, both sides, we're all here because we care about kids. I just want to remind people of that. And yeah, I mean, you can do silent clapping and things that don't distract, right, from the discussion, because it is important. That's not to say that I don't think, has nothing to do with Chrissy, right? Has nothing to do with the job. I've worked with Chrissy. Chrissy does an excellent job. I think part of this was hard for me because people didn't quite understand. Well, we already really hired Chrissy already, and this is now working out the contract. So the piece of it, though, that just is difficult to take is that, to me, that amount of money may more closely match business, professional business. It doesn't match what happens in education. And so where do we go from there, right?
Sure.
I mean,
No, totally. I've had a robust education on the master contract. It's a lengthy read, and it's so enlightening to see why education itself becomes more institutionalized, because teachers really, regardless of, right, like, it's education and tenure, and education and tenure. So it does become more of a difficult, or a more, not palatable, but like a bigger piece or chunk to understand. Again, like I said, I had been waiting for 2 weeks to hear your comments, so I just had to ask. I really, wanted to know, and just with you being here and you being on negotiations, because it's the first time I had had such a lengthy interaction with, like, from our contract to Boise's contract to West Ada's contract to classified to certified to, it was such a robust understanding, and it was just like eye-opening, I guess, but also at the same time just like, it's so great to learn new information for me. Like, I enjoy that part of things. So I had wondered what you would have to say, because I spent so much time reading contracts, so I appreciate that. Go? Okay, perfect. So I wanted to take quite a bit of time tonight because of all of the email that we received. And I have spent 2 weeks doing a massive amount of due diligence. So I'm super excited to present to you guys. I will be referring a lot to email. They are all in PDFs. They will be shared after the meeting so that you guys can view what I see here. So we're gonna start just simply, so first, there is so much inaccurate information being spread about our recent clerk appointment that I thought it would be best this evening if I presented my due diligence in a more functional way. My presentation tonight will cover a multitude of questions and comments that we have received from the community, as well as a better understanding of who Ms. Lamont is and a breakdown of her contract. First and foremost, my relationship with Chrissy Lamont. I first became aware of Ms. Lamont when she was facilitating professional workshops for our previous board as their ISBA representative. I got to know her a bit better on the campaign trail as I reached out to her numerous times to call upon her expertise. I want to make clear that she has over 15 years of experience in this field. Her expertise includes, but are not limited to, open meeting law, best practice, conflict resolution, leadership development, board training, public school finance, superintendent evaluation, continuous education, improvement planning, governance, etc. And her vision and mission behind 3B is groundbreaking and just what I feel like our board needed to navigate these current times. A similar statement has also been given to Idaho News. It simply was not added to any of the articles that they have run regarding this matter. I want to additionally assure the community that Chrissy and I had no relationship prior to this time. I have asked Christy tonight to personally present on a few topics about her professional history. Prior to this, however, I would like to address how Chrissy was hired and any questions regarding the legality of why the board was able to appoint her in this way. I really appreciate what you said about people not even realizing that Chrissy is our clerk. She is not our interim clerk, she is our clerk, and up until this time, Chrissy has received no compensation. I have up there the statute so that you guys can read that. You probably can't see it, but again, we'll share it. It's simply the statute. So that's the code. I can't do both. I thought I would have more functionality, but it's Idaho Code. Can you read that, Mandy? 33506?
Yeah, 33-506.
Perfect. So if you guys want to follow along, you can look that up, but that is exactly how the law reads. So that is the board business first meeting. So I would like to talk to you guys about how I perceive our Board of Trustees. I look at our Board of Trustees as our community arm. The clerk is appointed to serve as a check and balance to the system. The clerk reports directly to the board. One of the biggest reasons that I believe we have been in crisis mode for the last few years is that we have an unbalanced relationship of an understanding of our board and its duties. At this time, I have asked Ms. Lamont to present her background education, her journey to get where she is today in her career, and an understanding of what 3B is and why it was founded. I first want to make clear that the letters posted to the agenda were for the purposes of this presentation only. I want to make clear that they were never to be used as letters of recommendation for this specific role, but to assist in laying the foundation of her qualifications. If I can, next slide. Thank you. This is a screenshot from my trustee email in case anybody wants to public records request it, dated 2/21. This specific email is an email that Chrissy sent to us about her business 3B. This just outlines how she got there and those letters of recommendation. Shortly following this email, I asked Chrissy to include these things in our board packet. Let's see, sorry. Okay, perfect. I wanted to specifically share this before she presents because of the misinformation shared in a recent article about the nature of what these letters would be used for. On 2/24, we received a letter to the entire board from Karen, and I'm so sorry, I feel like I'm gonna butcher this name, Echeverria, thank you so much. I do have this, it will be going online. I did have it titled Karen Archivia Going to Media. Specifically, Mrs. Archivia sent us an email at 8:42 p.m. stating that she was going to the media because Chrissy had posted her letter and basically wanted us to know that she would not recommend her for this job and felt the letter had been used inappropriately. I again will make all of this email public. At 9:13 p.m., Ms. Lamont made us all aware of the situation and kindly removed the letter. I was proud of the way that Chrissy handled it. At 9:53 p.m., I offered to reach out as I thought I would explain to Mrs. Archivia why it was there. The next morning I called and she had already gone to the news. I called her in the AM and she returned my call in the afternoon. The phone call was cordial. I simply explained to her why the documents were there. She explained to me that she basically didn't want to be part of any of the public hubbub going on, if you will, and then advised me about her time with ISBA. Give me just a second. And then she also expressed her dissatisfaction about the legal issues that she had read. Again, this email will be made public for the full time and date stamp so that everybody can follow those chains of events. At this time, I would like to offer another letter received by our board from a former ISBA president. This will also be made public. To whom it may concern, hello, my name is Jim Storer. I am a trustee in the Soda Springs School District and have served on many local boards for 18 years. I am writing this on behalf of Chrissy Lamont, who applied to work as your board clerk. It is my hope that you will include this discussion of my letter in your meeting. I know Ms. Lamont very well and feel that I can speak on her behalf. As I am typing this, I received a message from my wife stating that Idaho Ed News had just posted something about why I am writing, and I hope that I can share what I feel is transpiring. First, let me say congratulations to you new board members and to your interim superintendent. Leading and serving is important for any community, and the capacities that you are serving will lead your young people out of your community in the future. As a new board member, you are learning your responsibilities, and I hope that you seek out advice from other board members in your region if there are issues arise that you may need advice on. Chrissy would be an excellent person outside your board to ask, but if hired, would be available to the board anytime to answer those questions. She has trained boards on all aspects of responsibilities and knows where and how to look up answers through Idaho Code that will keep your board performing at the correct level. Just a little bit about me and how I know of Chrissy's capabilities. I was fortunate enough to serve as Region Vice Chair and Chair for Region 5 on the Executive Board of ISBA. I served 4 years in those positions. Then I was asked to submit my name forward to serve in the Officer Corps of ISBA. And so I served another 4 years working closely within all ISBA staff and its former executive director. So I learned the inner workings of the association and learned of the character styles of each of the staff. If there is one word to describe Chrissy, it's energetic. She was able to liven up a board meeting or board training, and I like that about her. But she also knew the materials she was sharing and didn't have to stop to find the answers. She knew them and would share them. Having a knowledgeable clerk is paramount to the working of the board. If you learn your roles well, you will find that the clerk is your #1 call when finding out what's on your agenda and concerns that might need to be addressed. Remember that you provide the leadership and hire a superintendent to steer the goals that you implement. The clerk works with the district staff and chairman of the board to create your agendas, and Chrissy would be outstanding in guiding a new board when asked to have a pertinent information needed to best make decisions in your district. Earlier I stated while serving as an officer, I learned of the character styles of each of the staff. No one is perfect, and sometimes we make mistakes or don't meet exactly the standards that someone has set for you as an employee. It saddened me when I heard of a couple of staff that had either been let go or left on their own their employment from ISBA, Chrissy being one of them. I felt at the time that it was a character style or personality difference that led to Chrissy leaving. As a trustee who has served for as long as I have, who has been active in ISBA and its management, I felt that maybe enough wasn't done to retain such valuable assets. Districts across this whole state of Idaho wanted these two folks to do their training because we trusted them and learned each time we were with them. I know that the inter-office relationships can change in what was happening at the time. I felt that it was wrong that the ISBA dismissed them and know that ISBA will feel the effects of their decisions for years to come. I know I will still push to use her and one other to do our board trainings because we have that trust. The outgoing director of ISBA, in my view, did a disservice to our membership and is still doing a disservice in your decision whether to hire Ms. Lamont or not. If a recommendation was used that was given to her prior, then she should be able to reference it in her accomplishments for the Under 40 award that was recognized while she worked under the former director. The former director will continue to attack her character, as again it comes down to personality, not ability. Chrissy Lamont has shown that her knowledge and desires are to make boards be better boards, and yours with the help of Chrissy will be just that, better. I follow education across the state and watch closely what is happening in most of the districts. It's never good usually to be in the news, but to be in the news usually you reach out to someone who delivers or make enough of the public mad that they want to have you come cover the proceedings. The change in your district is a major one, but with the guidance from each other and a superintendent that performs his role, patron input, and a clerk that knows her role, you will accomplish great things. I ask you to consider Chrissy for her abilities to do the job that your board is asking. Ignore all the noise that will continue to come as it will, no matter the decision. If your decisions are based on what is best for the student, then you're doing your job. Thank you so much for your time in reading this. Jim Storer, Trustee, Soda Springs District 150, past President ISBA, and then his address is provided. This letter will be made, again, available to you. And yet I continue. At this time, now that we've laid the foundation, I have asked Ms. Lamont to present a little bit about herself and who she is.
First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to say a little something about myself.
You gotta say your name first.
I was going to. My name is Chrissy Lamont. I have 4 years of board clerk experience at the minimum. That was
Say that
directly
again. You have what?
4 years of experience just as the board clerk prior to ISBA. The past 8 years, I have been training school boards, board clerks, superintendents, district staff, charter staff in Idaho, Alaska, Oregon, and Texas. A quick overview in trainings I have provided include, but are not limited to, Ready, Set, Govern, board conduct, the good, the bad, and the ugly, Robert's rules in running a meeting, governance camp, open meeting law, conflict of interest, boardroom audit, communication is key, positive, productive, and purposeful community relations. We are where we are and where we are going. Set clear goals and accomplish them. Systems review. Professional boards inside and outside the boardroom. Superintendent evaluation. How to conduct a superintendent evaluation. Setting goals and measuring growth. Board and superintendent teamwork. Effective community engagement. Best practices for board chair, and board clerk. Board authority. Funding and finance. Unity and trust. Board meeting 101. Fiduciary responsibilities. Board standard operating procedures. Key school board and superintendent roles in budget, finance, curriculum, student success, hiring, policies, superintendent evaluation, superintendent board relationships, community engagement. Those are just a few. I've also facilitated town halls and listening session on hot topics, but are not limited to the change in mascots, safety concerns, finance concerns, and conflict resolutions, to say a few. I also have sat on the Principal Evaluation Committee, where we finalized the principal evaluation tool that the state's using. I also received the 2019 40 Under 40 Award. Next, I would like to address some items reported in the news about me. Firstly, the misdemeanor that I pled guilty to does not disqualify me from being hired with your district, nor would it disqualify me from holding an Idaho teaching certificate. Secondly, there is a pending charge against me. I am innocent until proven guilty, and I anticipate those charges to be dropped. Lastly, my lawyer has indicated to me that I don't have a failure to appear charges. He believes that is an error without fact checking on multiple levels. Last year, I started my own business called 3B Building Better Boards. After a change in leadership at ISBA, I just felt like I needed to do what was best for boards and best for myself and feel supported. 3B's mission is to advance organizational boards to a gold star standard of operations so that they can move their organization forward in a positive, productive direction. You ask, what has 3B done? Well, 3B is a state-approved trainer. We applied in September 22, and we were approved on October 8th by the State Board of Education as a state-approved trainer. What does that mean, you ask? Or you're thinking, right? Under Idaho Code 33320, school boards are allocated $6,600 for board training by a state-approved trainer. Why is that a fun fact? Well, that is a fun fact because up to $6,600 of my salary would be eligible for reimbursement. How? When I am educating and training the board or board members on the eligible topics under Idaho Code 33320, the topics are finance, governance, ethics, superintendent evaluation, and continuous improvement planning. What else have we done at 3B? We have been working with board teams throughout the state and are always a phone call away. Our team understands the importance of having lived in the role and not having anyone to help you. We understand that board members do not know what they don't know. They are volunteers and need guidance from an unbiased person. In a short time as your board clerk, I have identified a few board responsibilities that are required your immediate attention. First, charter authorizer role, the board authority with renewal and audit annual reviewing. Executive session processes and procedures, which include following state requirements. Accountability timelines. Annual board planning schedule, including but are not limited to. Strategic planning, mission and vision, community outreach and engagement, superintendent evaluation, and a board clerk evaluation. Most and importantly, effective reports on student achievement. As you can see, I bring to this position more than your average clerk. But I think we also know that you're more than an average board. You're a brand new board with a potential you will have 4 brand new board members.
While I'm up here, Chrissy, can you also explain how this is the first time we've ever had a change of the guard, if you will, in the middle of the school year based on election cycle?
Sure. So within the election cycle changing from May election cycle for board trustees, it has went to November, meaning that your organizational meeting and your oath of office for those new board members after the election that they were voted on went from July during your fiscal years, so school board's fiscal years from July until June 30th. Now it is January 1st is when you take your oath of office.
So in the middle of a fiscal school year.
A middle of a fiscal school year, a middle of evaluation cycle, a middle in your whole process and planning while you're getting ready to start negotiations, building a budget, looking at how to move forward for the next year, and the legislature also starts in January. So a few things going on during that month.
Thank you, Chrissy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay.
Not to mention a new interim superintendent,
Yes. And I like to build.
which was after the fact anyways.
True. I like to build teams. I do a lot of long-range planning, but it is only as good as your leadership team. I think we're like a family sometimes. We're all gonna get along, but sometimes we're a little dysfunctional. We agree to disagree. And so you really become a team.
Thank you, Chrissy.
I'll stand for more questions later.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything for Chrissy, or shall I continue? Okay. Again, everything that I'm using for this presentation will be made available to you publicly. I would propose that Nampa has had an extreme lack of attention to this specific role. Our superintendent and assistant superintendent receive 1 clerk. You hire a board of 5 people with no dedicated clerk. I would also argue that we have had already in our short month and 42 days. How many meetings?
42 days today.
In
5
42 days.
meetings. That's 1 meeting average every 8 days. And then we've got 3 for March already.
Which already would be more than what our previous clerk was doing. I feel it pertinent now to address that I believe our school district has grossly underplayed the importance and value of this role. In watching the meetings the last few years and networking with previous trustees, one of the biggest requests was their own clerk. I will now read an email from Mike. Is Mike here?
Oh, he signed the
Mike,
signing sheet.
are you gonna read your own email? I'll read it all. No?
Well, he's public.
He's up to speak.
He signed up on
I'll
public
let Mike
comments.
speak to this. Mike, I really appreciated your email. Since you will speak, I will also make Mike's email available to the public. Mr. Fuller was a previous trustee for this board. The board is tasked with monumentous jobs, and the amount of due diligence needed to make informed decisions about school board issues is plentiful. The clerk is our at-will employee. Understanding what we do up here, because we make big impactful choices, whether it be about budget issues, whether it be about teaching issues, whether it be about superintendents. The ability and the necessity of due diligence is plentiful, and it's necessity. Our district and please hear me when I say this, and please do not leave this room and make this statement about one person. Our district has continually diminished this role, so anything that we do at this point will seem foreign as we reestablish it. Now that you know who our clerk is, I would like to break down the contract misconceptions. First, I'll address why it was posted. A commitment to transparency. We took this opportunity to bring you in on negotiations and give you 2 weeks to actually review the contract. The amount of tainted feedback that I got from misguided information was so large that most of it was unusable. The past 2 years we have watched as the board, the past 2 years we have watched as the board has made gratuitous choices with little to no time to understand the impact of these choices, and we have taken little to no public comment. The clerk position offered us a unique opportunity to invite you all into the process, and now, like I said, unfortunately, not all information was given, and most people sent emails in based on attention-grabbing news headlines. So I have been given primarily tainted feedback. One of the largest issues that we received feedback on or questions on regarding this matter was the clerk's salary. Next slide. First, I need to define salary. A fixed regular payment typically paid on a monthly or biweekly basis, but often expressed as an annual sum made by an employer to an employee, especially a professional or white-collar worker. Chrissy was not offered a salary. This is a contract. It would be a 1099. Next slide, please. This would make her a contractor, a person or a company that undertakes a contract to provide materials or labor to perform a service or do a job. The school meal service is provided by a private contractor. This will help in understanding the difference in cost of impact for teacher, classified or certified staff. Next, please. Great. Let's start with the number that Idaho Ed News used in their statement. Last year's clerk made $8,568. Nampa's average teacher salary is $49,926. Let's do the math. The formulation for a district salary cost because of a benefits package is salary cost times 20% plus $8,500 for benefits. This is a simple number. There are other things that go into this calculation. We'll get to that at the bottom. So your calculation for a teacher making $49,926 plus the 20% is $68,411. Total cost per teacher making this wage. Full time for this position is 40 hours per 185 working days. There are 365 days in a year. Does everybody now understand, or hopefully now we can all understand that we're talking about cost to district? With Chrissy being a private contractor, there is nothing additionally added to her wage whatsoever as laid out in the contract that has yet to be accepted. Next slide, please. Now we'll talk about salary for classified staff, and we will also discuss last year's clerk's full wage. Again, these will all be made public as they are all part of our emails. Last year, Tammy Wallen made a stipend of $8,568 plus an additional $53,534 salary, an additional 500 COVID redemption certificate or COVID redemption. She was paid this way because she wore 2 hats. She was the previous superintendent assistant. We will post that job description online for you. And then she also received a stipend for the clerking. Ms. Wallen resigned in December. I, even though I'm a board member, found out just when the board packet was announced before our previous meeting. That's the type of communication that I received. regarding that matter. In 2020, the stipend was $4,200, and in 2021, the stipend doubled to $8,568. What I find is that you cannot serve two masters. We cannot have the same clerk as our one employee. It just creates a conflict of interest, no matter how great of a person you think you are. It just doesn't work, because there are things that have to be done by this board that can or will or could potentially lead to things that would need conflict resolution, because again, the monumentous decisions that we are dealing with. This will all be made public after this meeting. Additionally, at this same token, I would like to talk about the amount of money that we have paid to ISBA for specifically just training. In 2021, we held a training that cost us $2,800. This was one professional development training with Chrissy. We held another training that was $1,705. This was simply another professional development package. We also had, let's see, we pay them $19,000 a year annually. However, we do receive a kickback on our insurance, and then $2,700 for board docs. Again, this is all gonna be made public to you guys so you can see what the cost is that we have in training. So already doing the math and what we could possibly save in training and the $6,600 that we saved with Chrissy, we're already at about $13,000. Okay, I'll continue. Three hours, great. Now, we've already determined what Tammy Wallen was making, so I would like to invite you all to do the math with me about what Tammy Wallen's cost to this district was just for her one position as actually the superintendent's assistant. So let me give you guys that number. You guys can do this.
Hey, please. Look, no, you're all gonna get, listen, you're all gonna get an opportunity to comment. You have an opportunity to comment. Sir, listen, you can, look, you're gonna have an opportunity to comment. You can wait then or you can wait outside. But please, you're gonna have that opportunity to comment.
I'm also asking that you ask her to understand that we are not able to speak can do the math. We can't understand what she's saying. She's talking down. All of us have done that, and yes, I'm not the one.
Listen, and we all have an okay, then you're free to leave.
I'm also free to stay here.
Then you can stay, but please keep your comments so that we can finish this and get through it. If you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it, but you're gonna have an opportunity for public comment. If you wanna come up to the mic during that time, you're more than welcome to when we get to that point, okay? I'm gonna allow the trustees to comment and discuss whatever they wanna bring up, okay? So,
It's because I'm gonna go into how classified staff is paid. If you could continue with the presentation, we will get there. We're going to about right now so that you guys just understand the cost or the impact. I get that you maybe do. We received a multitude of emails that didn't understand at all. So I really do have to explain this. I'm sorry if specifically you don't need this. My whole goal is just to continue to stay monotone. I am sorry if it feels emotional. Okay, I'm gonna continue. Thank you. The cost for a full-time employee, so at the $56,000 wage, would be that times 20% plus the average of $8,000 for health insurance. This would put Miss Wallen, if you do the math, at about $72,000 a year, being the superintendent's assistant. I think that that's our last slide, so I'll continue from here. What the difference is between Ms. Lamont's contract and that of a certified employee is that she would not be an employee of the district. So simply stating that we would be able to either end her contract at will, but she also does not receive any of the other benefits that any of our other staff has or does receive as a full-time employee. And that's it.
All right, any other comments from the board? We'll get to you guys in just, hold on, we'll get to you guys.
Yeah, I'd like to, I have a little small presentation.
Right, when you define small,
It's not as long as.
okay.
I just want to start with, when I came to ask to be run for this trustee position, I'm just going to kind of read my thoughts. So when the community was very concerned and displeased with the Napa School District leadership, including the school board at the time, they expressed concern for the well-being of their children, with the policies and curriculum being forced on them and their families. When I attended some of the board meetings, I witnessed theaters full of parents and community members not being allowed to comment and being forced to listen only to the members who represented the school leaders. There seemed to be, in my opinion, a false belief from the school leaders, board, and government that they were the authority over the parents' children. When us three trustees won, there was much hope, overwhelming feelings of hope when we won, because the community, the parents, the children wanted change, they wanted transparency, they felt that there was overreach of power. That is the only reason I ran for this board. This is a volunteer position. And I ran because I wanted to represent the parents, their children, the community, and the teachers who feel that had no voice. And as a board of trustee, Code of Ethics, it states that I will strive to make all decisions based on the available facts and my independent judgment, and refuse to surrender that judgment to individuals or special interest groups. I will respect the right of the public to be informed about district decisions and school operations. As a school board trustee, I'm coming in as a volunteer. We exist to oversee the activities of the school system so the students can have the best possible experience and outcome. We are responsible for looking over policies, making decisions on these policies, curriculum, contracts, multi-million-dollar budgets, employment personnel terms, conditions, litigations, investigations. Like I said, in 42 days since I've been sworn in, we've already had 5 meetings. We have 3 more. I have spent countless one-on-one time with Chrissy. There is no way I can make all these decisions for this community, these students, and these parents without having somebody that I can trust. We were trusted by the people to oversee the school system so students can have the best positive experience. And the most important responsibility of the board is to work with their community to improve student achievement in public schools. This is how this system determines the goals and policies if they're working. It's very important to me that that we do communicate with the community. And I need to know these policies, and I need to be able to trust who's teaching these policies to me. I do not trust the ISBA. I also can go over some monies that we spend on that. And that's why I believe in Chrissy. In order for me to bring transparency, change, and policies that represent the parents, children, and the community, I believe it was imperative that I receive training, consultation, assistance, and advice from someone I felt was unbiased, separate from the district, not part of any association, knew policy, open meeting law, and someone I trusted would best represent the community. Chrissy, to me, was an answer to prayer, because this was a big feat for me to take on this position, because I knew I was going against a lot of people who didn't want me in this position in leadership. I knew the challenges I was up against and the sharp learning curve I would have to endure taking on this position. While meeting Chrissy during campaigning, I felt she was extremely knowledgeable in policies, Idaho law, best practices, meeting laws, and much more. Most of all, she was not part of any interest group. As a past superintendent stated, Chrissy is an educational leader. She has the courage to act in situations. She is willing to risk failure if it leads to achieving the larger goal for the district and the people she works with. I have had many hours of one-on-one with Chrissy. Trust me when I say Chrissy will help me help you. Chrissy has already discovered that the district has not been following best practices in Idaho laws. She's already going through policies that have been followed incorrectly. I would not know to look for these things. These are things that would limit our power to help the community. On January 18th, we were sworn in as new trustees. Again, I said there are 42 days and already 5 meetings. Multiple hours in between with Chrissy, meeting with directors, principals, Greg, Randy, director of special ed. Unfortunately, we have spent hours and hours with little progress in doing what really is necessary to bring good policies and practices that benefit our children because of the biased news and these volunteered resignations has created a lot of work and a burden on the new trustees and has increased the division in our community. I think it is imperative to mention a few things to clarify to the public and hopefully stop the division caused by lack of transparency by the district, biased news sources, which continue to post in the district emails. If I can now just pass this out to you. I think you went over this already a little bit. This is how the monies we spent with ISBA. So looking over the expenses we spend for training, because ISBA is Idaho School Board Association, who's supposed to provide training, which, by the way, I would have gone to the training, but they refused to allow the whole team to go to the training, so right there was a red flag for me. I don't want to go to an association who does not allow me to bring who I feel I need to help me help the community.
What training are you talking about?
The one that was recently up at the Capitol.
Oh, Capitol on the Hill?
Yeah. So here I see that our dues for the Idaho School Board Association are $20,668. Now in that it says that we get a rebate of $10,731, but when I was talking to Chrissy, help me to reiterate this, Chrissy, that we actually, that doesn't get refunded back from the ISBA, that comes from, can you tell me, explain that?
What I said was, I think you need to ask ISBA to discuss what you get for your membership dues, because you get that, but it's an insurance dividend. So I was just explaining that that was what that was, an insurance dividend.
So we still pay them the $20,606, but then we get that refund, not from, it doesn't really come out of their pocket, that $10,000, so they still get the $20,000. Anyways, that being said, we also are paying, they charge us $2,800 for a training with Chrissy. There's about $6,700 more on top of those dues in training. So again, I would reiterate, what are we getting for the dues that we're paying them? And then also I noticed that they announced recently that they have partnered with a D&D Integrated Solutions for future-proofing your learning space for COVID. D&D has experience in creating wellness centers and isolation rooms for our children.
Excuse me, Trustee Pearson, is this still germane to the clerk?
Yeah, only
The
what I'm
contract that
trying,
agenda?
trying to explain is
Okay.
that I feel like we're getting more training from Chrissy, and I feel more trusted in receiving training from her and giving money to her than I am ISBA. That's what I'm trying to get across. Okay, sorry, I apologize. I'm not used to being.
That's all right,
You're
sometimes
doing
we
great.
just need to steer
then-
back onto the
Yeah,
track.
you're doing great.
Okay, sorry. And then the only other thing did I give you, where in we spent $30,000, the district did, Did you guys get that paper? In 2018, $18,000 for one day with a speaker for the trustees, and another time $12,000. So $30,000 in 2 years for two times speaking, having a speaker. So my point is, I think there's been a lot of wasted money in training that I think we are getting a lot of that from Chrissy.
Okay, is that it? Okay.
I was going to mention are we going to talk about the email we got with the personal? Can I bring that up now, or where we're having to release personal information? I guess what I want to say also, because we're talking about money spent to Chrissy, and I rely and depend a lot on somebody that I trust. Because I feel if I can't trust the person that is helping me with these policies and these budgets and this curriculum, how am I going to help the community and the parents and the teachers, and if I don't understand it all? So I feel like what we're paying here is valuable.
Okay. All right, I will reserve my comments until after public comment. I think there's a couple of guys that want to speak. But let me start with who's signed up on here, and I'll just run down this thing, okay? And we'll make sure we get everybody who wants. There'll be 3 minutes for each speaker. Please, when you come up, state your name, and please keep it on topic. We're talking about the contract that was proposed by our board clerk. Okay? So the first one who signed up was Rex Burmester, A.U. Sorry about that. Come on up and say your name the way it's supposed to be said.
My name is Rex Burmester. I live in Zone 1. Thank you, Mandy. Chairman Kirkman, trustees, Dr. Russell, thank you for the opportunity. Fix that a little better. Is that better? To address you. Staying on topic, I have everything organized and I'm ready to go. However, I forgot to mention, I also served for 18 years on this board of trustees.
Thank you.
And so my notes are organized, but I've heard some comments here in just the last couple of minutes and the concerns. And I just have to say really quickly, I don't envy you folks all being new at the same time. I had the luxury of being one of 2 board members in my first year, and I had the luxury to be able to sit back, listen, not just, I was awake and paying attention, but I was sitting back and listening and learning. And I can see you folks have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and I feel for that. Trustee Pearson, I'm sorry that you're uncomfortable with the Idaho School Board's administration. Everybody has to, I guess, make up their minds about that, but some of my best memories as a trustee were training sessions at ISBA meetings. Not only a lot of great subject matter, but you get to network with people from all over the state. It's a really good experience. So that's just my take on it. And if I can convince you to reconsider it all, as time goes on, I think it would bring the anxiety level down a little bit. So anyway, that's just my thought. The presentation that Trustee Taylor put on, I just want to say it sounds like a total and complete and utter retooling of the job of the clerk, and I'm frankly just, I understand the perceived advantages there, but it's a total retooling of a job that I think is unnecessary, totally unnecessary. That's my opinion. So I did get a chance to review the contract, and It did set my old school board juices running just a little bit. I didn't know they were still there, but they are. So I have just a few concerns, and if it's okay, I'll just go through them real quick.
You got 20 seconds.
Well, let me just turn this in then.
Just go ahead. Just go ahead. Just go
I'd
ahead.
like to
Okay,
hear it.
so I'll just real quickly, I'll do this
See,
in
I
a
have the
minute.
discretion to waive a little bit of time, so.
I appreciate that,
So
Mr.
say what you
Chairman, and
have to do.
I will do this quickly. Section 3, the demands for hours and salary are out of proportion with the job description. It's just out of proportion with the scope of the job. Section 7, and by the way, my problems don't involve who you hire. It has a lot more to do with how it's done. Section 7, the section on expenses bothered me tremendously. It's very vague and very general. The section on professional equipment is non-specific. The section on professional development is very unspecific. I think contractual agreements are binding, if I remember correctly. So you kind of want to get as much detail into them as you can. So the district will be contractually obligated to provide office space. Where, how much, etc. I believe, in my opinion, the board, not the contractor, it's their responsibility to create the job description and seek to fill that job description. So, Section 10, under this agreement, the district will be contractually obligated to allow the contractor to work for others. Again, it's vague in general in my reading. The district would seem to have no way to resolve work conflicts should they arise. Further, the contract, not the district, the contractor, not the district, completely controls the means, the manner, and the methods which services are delivered. And I think that's just abdicating a little bit too much responsibility and power, in my opinion. Section 16, the contractor may delegate duties to other individuals. Again, it's vague in general. In my experience, vague and unspecific agreements can tend to lead to misunderstandings and conflict. Further, the board, in my opinion, does not need to enter into a legally binding contract for a service that has been provided in a professional fashion and in a timely fashion up until this time.
Okay.
I strongly urge you to post the position. Has the job been posted? Has the position been posted? No.
Nope.
So
It was filled according to the statute.
It was filled according to the statute.
yes, now, yeah, not a procedural
I mean,
issue,
that,
but
well, just to answer your question, yes,
yeah,
that's how it was filled.
Okay, my recommendation would be to post it, see what you get, and interview some candidates. You can have a great selection, and yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, that covers my concerns. Design the job, look for the right person, and I think an ISBA, again, if I can convince you to re-examine your opinions there, that would be good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pete Kohler? Unless you have served on the board before, you get 3 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
No, my name is Pete Kohler. No, I haven't served on the board, but I will tell you that I do have a long history with the Nampa School District. I was an elementary teacher, I was an elementary principal, I was a high school principal, and I sat in that seat right there. And then I also was the chief of staff for the State Department of Education. So I do have some experience,
some experience there,
within
yeah.
the
That's
educational
great.
world.
Can I ask what year?
What was it, Greg? I don't even remember. 13, 14? I happen to have been the guy that, like Greg, was pulled in when the finances blew up for the school district. I'd hoped to retire, but that didn't happen. So anyway, I don't want to be redundant. I think everything that Rex said, I agree with. To be frank, when I pulled a copy of the contract and looked at the cost. I was floored. Basically, what in my day, you're asking the clerk for 30 hours a month to what we would in my day paid an elementary principal. So that threw me a little bit, the amount of money. I don't know her from Adam. I don't. So I couldn't tell you whether it's the right person or the wrong. I don't know. So I'd like to take a slightly different tact with my few minutes. And I want to go back to my experience with money and the Nampa School District. It's been a long time since it blew up, but it was not a whole lot of fun. And if the message goes out that the board is willing to put money out there that's beyond understood expectations, I don't question the value, understood expectations, then I worry about such things as bonds coming up. You live by the bonds. Anybody that tells you you don't is not being honest with you. You live by the bonds. And I also worry about the messages then that are sent to the employees of the Nampa School District. And I don't think it would be, and this is Pete Kohler's opinion. I didn't take a survey, I didn't read anything. This is my experience, over 20 years experience with the school district. It will not be understood by the employees of the school district. So that's really what I had to say. But it needs to be understood. What isn't out there right now is an understanding of why the money that's being spent is being spent. I also know the school regulations, so if somebody has a question on Title 33, I know the book inside and out. So, but thank you for your time, and I will also follow with Rex. Thank you for serving. It's an ungrateful job, and you're going to get hammered no matter what you do. So thank you.
Thank you for your insight. Appreciate
Thank you.
Next on the sign-up sheet is Mike Fuller.
Sounds like it's reunion night. I was elected to be a member of the board in 2013 when Pete agreed. I'm so grateful for him that he agreed to stay on and help us out. That continuity, I think it was a wise decision to keep Greg on for at least a year and a half. I might take liberty of that offer you gave with the 3 minutes.
It's out there now.
I was on the school board for 5 years, and I just do express my appreciation. You were foolish. There's something crazy about us. There is. I am here to speak on a little bit about the contract, and I like what Rex and Pete have said. I think there needs to be a lot to be considered about the perception you made. But I also really appreciate a comment I read on a Facebook post recently by another former school board trustee that's here, and she used the word grace. I give you a lot of grace. You were the ones that were willing to jump in this tumultuous times. You were the ones that read. It sounds like you realized the day before you needed a clerk, and statute said you needed to appoint a clerk, so you appointed a clerk. So I give you grace for that. I also want to point out that, yeah, you haven't agreed. This is I compliment you on making this public. You could have put it on the agenda, consent agenda, right? And we would just been ignored. So you have listened to us. I reflect on the 5 years as a board member, and especially the 1 year as a board chair, and have recommended to the majority of you in conversation to hire an independent board clerk to support you. Not to say anything, oh man, I just love Tammy Wallen and for all that she did. And I do hope that you'll have a good relationship with ISBA, but I think consolidating the support and having someone that can help you, as you've seen, is valid. I look back and have, of those 5 years and the 4 years since, and pondered deeply the question while having conversations with current board members, and what can help the board become most effective, and that is to hire a clerk that can do all that you can trust and consider, and similar to an administrator. I think you need that help. There's so much that would have been prevented. I think that you should look more closely at this contract, take in the considerations that have made. The research I've done, I do compare that position that would be ideal to more like a district level administrator, but I do think, from what I understand, a $50 an hour salary is more like 32 because it doesn't take in the benefits. I'm not here to speak to the details of the contract, but I don't think you should accept it as is. And I think it might have been proposed as a negotiating. But I just do want to thank you for what you're doing. And encourage you as you're just where you're at, because I have the opportunity to figure out what effective school boards do. And my experience in research time is that you focus on kids and their learning, and you do that by setting instructional and learning goals with collaboratively with others, and then hold the superintendent accountable for meeting those goals and have them report on those goals. I was told early in my experience that effective school boards, if they spend the majority of their time in board meetings, listen to reports on student instruction and achievement, then that district is better. And so I encourage you to consider that as you set your agendas and as you do with everything else. Consent agenda as much as you can, not something like this, but I give you grace and I thank you for what you're doing and encourage you to keep it up. Take Pete up on that offer. Don't let him leave without getting his phone number.
I wrote that.
And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So Heather Pruitt, if you want to speak.
Hello, distinguished board members. My name is Heather Pruitt. I work for you. I work in the Nampa School District at Nampa High as a paraprofessional. I want to say I am thankful for what you do because I know it is a hard job. Now, I appreciate your clarification on some of the information that was provided, but as someone who works for the district, the protocol for which people are hired is that we, no matter what, so I have currently, I'm a paraprofessional and have been working toward getting my teaching certificate to teach special education. Now, I cannot go to my principal, Mr. Yarborough, and expect that I have any benefit above anyone else when going to that. I have to make in the applications. I have to sit through interviews. And that, I guess, is where I feel like I was caught off guard, is that there was not an open position. It was never mentioned. And then that's what caught me off guard most, along with the contract, was that it was like, wow, I have to sit through all this work, and so do my counterparts and our administrators have to go through rounds and rounds and rounds of interviews and application processes to get their position. It wasn't so much Ms. Lamont, because I don't know anything really about her, and I really appreciate the clarification on the part of who she is, but that is where I stood, was that it goes against the grain, and it feels like a smack in the face to us that have to go through that process of being vetted and being given the opportunity to multiple people for the same position. And that's really what it came down to for me, is that it felt like we have to fight against each other, and even our administration. I can specifically remember 2 administrators, the current administration. I remember when that position was open, when Ms. Molino left Nampa High, and 2 of our very wonderful staff competed for the position of vice principal there. And I couldn't have picked one from the other. And I know that that was difficult, but it was like they were both given the opportunity to fight for that position equally. And that's just what I'm here to say, is that, whenever you're making those considerations, it's important to think about those things. Not from a standpoint of the legality, and I appreciate your transparency, but just from the sense of being able to unify us and everybody to feel understood, and like there's a sense of equalness for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pruitt. Patrick Tanner? He left? Okay. I apologize. Jamie Hazing. I get that right? Yes.
Oh, goodness. Thank you again, Chairman Kirkman and trustees, for letting me speak. My head is just swimming after all of that information from the two of you. So I'm gonna try to stick to it, talking about the contract from my perspective as a teacher and negotiator. I do wanna say, I think that this is what I was hearing Ms. Pruitt say was, maybe it wasn't her, I'm so sorry. Talking about the clerk position and the administrative to the superintendent, that will be, those are two different jobs. So I have to say that. I am not in favor of this contract. It is expensive. I do see the value in what she can bring. I do. It broke my heart to hear you say that about the ISBA. That would be unprecedented if we separated with them, I would guess. But I sit at the negotiation table, and Mandy talked about it earlier, and those pennies count. And over the last few meetings, Randy's been updating us on financial scenarios that face us if the levy does not pass, if certain legislation does pass. It is my understanding the money could be very tight. And I'm gonna skip that part. I did want to say that I liked what Mr. Fuller said. Unfortunately, right now, the fiscal responsibility that you face, he's not the one sitting in those negotiation meetings where we're talking about the money. And this is a really bad time to be talking about this, because we are right to the point where we're about to negotiate our financial package. So it's kind of unfortunate that this is all happening at the same time. There have been years where we have not settled contracts, even with maybe some people in this room, where we're $15,000, $20,000 apart, $30,000, and we can't get the contract settled. And so to see, just from the outside, a salary go from here to here, it's very, I agree that it will hurt the employee morale. I don't think they'll understand it. Even if you can give them that fantastic presentation, they're just not gonna get it. We're too busy in our rooms. We're too busy with these kids. We don't have the time. We trust you to make those financial decisions. And I wanna say more, but I'll go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazen, appreciate that. And then William Jarrett. State your name, 3 minutes, and to the topic.
I'll refrain from my voice projection. Sorry about earlier.
It's all good. I understand the emotions.
Yes.
Hold on one second. And William, I want to say sorry too. I think my frustration that's coming out is more with how the media handled what was released, and I think that's the frustration. So I'm so sorry. I just want you to feel totally disarmed.
This may help you out here.
Great.
All of my opinions and statements have absolutely nothing to do with anything that has been published, I think I know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
It has
And
nothing to do
so
with
I
that.
just don't want you to feel
Yeah.
that way before you present, and because I can hear that that's probably in
Yeah.
my tone, but that's what was difficult.
But since I'm not an esteemed former anyone, I'll stick to my 3.
Yeah, and can we restart that? 3 minutes for him? I'm so sorry.
Board of Trustees for Nampa School District, parents, attendees, my name is William Jarrett. I am a parent of a Nampa School District student and a resident of Nampa City. I'm actually going to cut to brass tacks because, believe it or not, you did address a lot of the problems that I had, or perceived problems, I would say. I think it's fruitless and useless to do any type of character attack against Chrissy. I don't know her, as it's stated, don't know her from Adam. I also don't know any of you personally. You're appointed of people, and then you also appoint, the director, excuse me, not the director, wrong term. But still, we place our trust in you. You chose a candidate, you did it the correct way. There is an unlawful piece of that. But we still have the problem of the perception. If you can save money through training, give us that perspective. If you can save money with what you're doing, if you're going to retool her position and she fits it best, then do so. Because when my perception, if I go on Indeed, if I go on USA Jobs, if I look at any position that is available that is private, and I see a position that is currently posted that is titled the Family Community Resources Communicator and Engagement Coordinator, I understand that you may have little control over this, but this is an individual who is going to help coordinate with the community to get the private sector to put new clothes on kids who don't have them, food in their bellies if they don't have that at home. It's going to help coordinate, find them housing. It's also going to help their parents if they lack employment. It's going to help them find employment. Something that I think everyone, regardless of any type of political affiliation or belief in the news, thinks is a very honorable duty. And this is not meant to disrespect her position, who she is, or where she sits. But I think that is a large plate. I think it is a huge duty. And I think it's bigger than the position that she would even fill with what you have brought to me. I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I will also point out to you that that job is posted if they have 11 years experience or they can fit that 11 slot, if they are bilingual and speak English and Spanish, and they meet all of those requirements. We are willing to pay them $38,472. I understand that comes with Percy and benefits, but I was also a state employee. Those do help. They are great.
Can you give me that number one more time?
$38,472 per year, and that is if they fit step 11. That is inside one of your, not private, but not censored. I'm sorry. It's within your private bracket, in between your public appointees, the nursing staff, your social workers, who are also, no offense, criminally underpaid. I'm not sure what your PhD is in, doctor, but I think you can agree that if there's a school psychologist, they definitely deserve more than $48,000 per year for a PhD. The perception is what is killing not just me as a parent, as a concerned citizen. It's going to kill you guys. Even if I'm not going to get into politics or the handling of COVID or anything. We are all here to help. Sorry. That's all.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all that's signed up. Before I open it up to anyone else who would like to come, I just want to reiterate, if you want to say something, you feel like you need to say something, if it's already been said, I don't think we need you to come up and say that. I'd love to sit here until midnight and listen to everyone who has opinions on this. But before that, is there anyone that would like to come up and address, let me get this gentleman here first, and then we'll get over here to you. I'm sorry? Oh, hold on just a second. Yeah, you did. I apologize, but it was a different. Yeah, it was a non-agenda item. Should we do that now or wait until we close this?
I would wait until we close this and then go straight to that.
Come on down.
It is an agenda.
Come on down. It is and it isn't, so absolutely.
Never mind.
Just state your name and thank you.
My name's Deborah Goodwin, and I'm in Mandy's zone. And my question is, would she be a 1099 person?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're 1099, is that person you're employed by, do they have to give you benefits? I've never heard that they had to supply benefits.
We are not giving, there's no benefits.
Well, you are giving her $20 an hour in benefits.
Oh, I get what you're trying to say, but there's
Yeah.
nothing outlined. I'm sorry. Let me let
So
you
the
speak.
72,000 isn't for benefits, it's just for,
Let me let you speak on sorry.
that was my question.
Oh.
So do you have to give her benefits and boost up her salary
So when
to
you say
72?
benefits, please explain to me. I don't want to, what
Well,
do you,
I'm not-
just for clarification, when
Yeah.
you say, do we have to
Like,
give her
I don't know,
benefits?
insurance, retirement,
No.
Hershey, da, da,
No.
da, da, da.
No.
Okay, so why are you giving it to her then?
We're not.
According to the email that I received, she's actually getting $30 and then $20 is for benefits. I have
Am I
that
missing
email.
something?
No, it's a breakdown of the calculation. I think you've emailed back and forth with us quite a few times, like
Yes,
on
I
levy
have.
and a multitude of things.
Yes.
So I have no issues talking to you whatsoever. I do think that there will be more clarification given as we go through the contract to your questions. It does get difficult when we're trying to talk about that. Sorry, I don't mean to be stealing her time. Maybe we stop it for a second.
So I just want to know, I
Yeah.
don't need any
Yeah.
conversation. I just need to know so you do not have to give her
No,
benefits.
the answer is no.
Okay, well, according to the emails, that's what you're doing. Okay, and then another question I had, if we're not with the Idaho State Board Association, do we still need to pay that $20,000 a year?
Technically,
that the amount?
technically, if you're not a member of ISBA, you don't pay the dues. You don't
Okay.
pay that association
Okay, so you wouldn't
fee
have
or
to pay
whatever.
that fee, it would go to her training.
No. I mean, to answer your question, ISBA, if we're affiliated with, if we're association, if whatever, they have membership dues, or if you will, I don't know exactly what they call them. If not, no, we don't have to pay
Okay,
that.
so you can break that, you don't have to pay that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
No,
that's
okay, so if that money that you're talking about paid to ISB, would it revert to the clerk? No.
It wouldn't? Okay. All right, and also on my emails, like you said, I wanted an amount that, was maybe left in the funds, the ESSR funds, because there's 3 levels, but they never gave me an amount. So I wanted to compare it with why we need a levy. But I can take that up with him
Yeah,
later,
let's
I
make
guess.
sure we get that
So,
information for her.
Yeah, we can.
So interim superintendent,
Yeah.
Dr. Russell, will make sure that that information is provided.
Okay, I'd like the amounts of what is left and with the supplemental levy.
Okay.
And, because it sounded like you didn't know what amounts were left. Oh, there's my time.
Oh. Well,
But that was
if you have
basic.
something else, that's fine, because I took some of that time
I did
also,
as
and I wanted
well.
to make sure that.
No, I don't want to,
Wanna
there's
make
a
sure
lot of
you're
people
asking.
wanting to talk, so. Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Just a quick point of clarification, there is an insurance benefit that's associated with ISBA.
With ISBA,
Yep.
yes.
Correct.
And that would be lost with these.
Right. That's all right.
I have a really loud voice, so I don't know where this is supposed to go.
That's just your name?
Okay, my name is James
Tell us
Ball.
what's on your mind.
I have 3 students in Zone 4, U.S. Army disabled vet. So I apologize first of all for the outburst, military bearing.
It's okay.
First
Totally
off,
okay. Seriously, totally.
So I just kind of,
Yeah.
I shot first, you know. Anyways, so pretty much everybody has covered like everything, especially the 2 gentlemen behind me right now. But the other concern is that, man, what was your name again? Mandy. Okay, so Mandy, when you guys were discussing like the superintendent's like cost of living, you like discussed like the 3%, like you were like concerned about 3%. But when it jumps from, you know, $6,000 to almost 70 grand or over $70,000, when our principals don't even make 68 in the school district. that have been in the school district for over 20 plus years. And they, you know, they work their butts off. I see it on a day-to-day basis. And have someone, you know, make that much money to me, you know, is, I don't know, that just like made my jaw drop. I wasn't even planning on speaking tonight, but like hearing the explanation of it and then having the other explanation of a completely other position that wasn't even being brought up. Also, the other point of having the, I didn't even know there wasn't a job listing open. It was just like put in, you know, nothing bad about her at all, because I don't know her. But that's all I really had to say was, I'm sorry. And, you know, like, if, let's just be consistent on the board, and if we're gonna complain about 3%, like, let's complain about 800% increase. Like, so, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service too. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to, man, I knew this was a mistake. Come on down. Let's start over here and then we'll come right here into the front and then up there in the.
You can all just start lining up. No.
And as he's coming down to the podium, I just want to reiterate, you know, there is in the policy, correct me if I'm wrong, Trustee Simpson, but there is a policy, and I think it's even in statute, that, you know, we don't have to take public comment at these meetings, but it really is important to me, and I think it's really important to the board to hear.
Ditto.
I've got a notebook full of public comment, but I really want to hear also from you guys. So I know that I would get tarred and feathered by my fellow trustees, but I'm willing to be here till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Ditto.
Not just kidding. It was just, but anyways, I do appreciate you guys and those who, so.
I want to express that appreciation as well. And Chairman, Board of Trustees, I do appreciate, I did not sign up, so I appreciate it even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have probably a comment, suggestion, and a question.
Sorry, state your name.
Alan Malone.
Thank you.
I do live in Zone 4. I didn't know that until this morning. Ms. Simpson, I got a question for you. Math teacher, what grade?
High school.
Oh,
And
geez.
I'm married to a high school math teacher. When I heard the comparison of 40 hours a week and 185 days as a point of reference for comparison of salaries, that doesn't come close, does it?
No.
No, it doesn't. Everybody knows that. That's the problem of
It
perception.
doesn't, I'm sorry, clarification, I didn't hear that. It doesn't compare
40
to-
hours per week and 185 days a year does not come close to the number of hours
Okay.
teachers put in. Doesn't come close. And that's the problem with perception. It's not just the salary difference, it's the perception of our teachers are treated with disdain from their perception. We have to be careful with this because I can tell you many teachers that are my friends feel that way right now. And they're looking and saying, what is Melba doing right now? What is Wilder doing? Where can I go find a job somewhere else? It's not just about levies, it's not just about the funds that we're trying to get into our school, but it's about retaining quality teachers. And you're going to lose them if you treat them that way. Unintentionally, but part of the due process, due diligence mentioned, is to investigate what they're doing. Learn how teachers educate and learn that process. Because right now, I think you have a false misunderstanding about that. So that's my suggestion as well as a comment on that, and I thank you, because I think that's an honest answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This young lady right here in front.
Hello, my name is Susan McKay. I've been an employee of the Nampa School District for 17 years this year. I wasn't planning on talking. I appreciate the opportunity for letting us do that because I think it's important for us to have a voice. I can appreciate everything that you guys do. I'm on 2 boards currently, one for almost 20 years because I'm a glutton for punishment, and another one for at least 10 years, maybe more. So I understand what this takes. I also understand what it takes when you come in to the board without having previous board experience or in education. When I started working at the school, I had never worked for a school before, It was very eye-opening. What do you mean you don't have a guarantee from one job year to the next? I didn't understand that either. So I've learned a lot in the 17 years that I've been here. I guess my first question is, why would you technically hire someone without having a contract or an agreement in place with what their salary would be prior to them taking on the job? That doesn't make sense to me. We don't start working jobs without knowing what our income's going to be. So I don't understand that process. I think first and foremost, what we're all thinking here as parents or staff, community members, is we have to do what's best for these kids. They have been through hell in a lot of ways these last 2 years, and that's not anybody's fault here. It's just where we're at. But I think if we put our money and invested in our students the way that we should be, whatever that might look like, SPED, extracurricular activities, that we value these kids coming up into our community and paying some jobs more than what is norm, I think speaks volumes as to where our priorities are, and that's concerning to me. I agree, this is not insulting to anybody on the board, but you need training, and where that training might come from, to me, would need to come from somebody who has the years of experience and protocols in place, and researching what that is. The better we can do in training is going to be better for our district. And I think one thing that you brought up was trust. And so the choices we make in all aspects of our life, wherever that might be, will evolve into the equation of trust. So the choices we make, we bring to the table, and I think perception, whatever that might be, what facts are, is important for us to look at. So thank you for the time, and I appreciate the job that you do.
Thank you. Sorry, there's one coming right behind you that was, you guys can fight it out of who you want to come up with.
My name is Tyler Zimmerman. I live in Zone 2. Just wanted to say thank you for giving me a chance to speak. Never got a chance to send an email to request first. But my big question, and I wanted to actually ask you, because you mentioned there was some false reporting. I wasn't able, because the job wasn't posted, to see what her position requirements are for the clerk. So if you could give me a quick rundown of that, that would be awesome.
Well, this is just for public comment. It's not back and forth. You
Okay.
know, so we can certainly provide.
If you can answer afterwards, that would be greatly appreciated. Because at least from my perspective of a clerk, it is taking minutes at meetings, updating the minutes, making sure they're posted, readily available, as well as updating any public records, record requests, anything like that. And so it's really hard to justify the financial implication of that high of a wage when the median wage in Boise, Idaho for a full-time employee is $51,000 a year according to Indeed. Your highest paid teacher in the Nampa School District with a PhD in the max tenure is $60,630. So I guess kind of how are you able to justify that and not just send any talent out to other neighboring school districts? The other one that I really have is, it sounds like she is very qualified to be a training consultant from what you two lovely ladies specified with all your remarks earlier. And if we were sitting here talking about her doing training consulting for the district, I'd be a lot more willing to listen than her doing basically the job of a secretary. So, no offense. I've taken meetings before. I've taken minutes before. Another good thing, since you guys are new, I would recommend reading Robert's Rules of Order for Parley Pro. Seems you're a little rough on some of the order, but outside of that, that is all I have to say, and thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Rost, Zone 4, previous trustee to this board for 4 years. Thank you. I'm just going to praise, commend, and talk
Hold on,
about all
just
the positives.
excuse me. Let me just make sure that, you know, those of you who are talking in the background, it's really hard to hear and it is a little bit distracting, so my apologies. Go ahead.
All the positives of this board. You have gone above and beyond. You've done everything you're supposed to do by law. Thank you for the very, very in-depth presentation that you did to explain all the emails. I'm familiar with how many emails you get and how many questions and how much there isn't that understanding. And the amount of patience that you've shown and transparency in this meeting tonight is far and beyond probably what I did in 4 years in your seat. I hope that everyone that is continuing to not understand some of the positions and things that you're discussing tonight, I hope they go back over that presentation and see that. I want to say that in my time as trustee, I did advocate for a full-time board clerk. I know Trustee Simpson and I came up with many ideas that we hope to do for community outreach programs that we weren't able to fulfill. I hope with a full-time board clerk, you're able to do those things so that many of these folks can see the positive and the good that I can see you want to do. You are taking so much time and transparency that you don't have to do. You didn't have to do all of this here. And yet you've done everything in full compliance of the law, as you should. Your board clerk will absolutely guide you in forming your agendas, forming your meetings, where you go, what you do, what you concentrate on. They are vital to your position, to what you do. So I hope that you continue down the road that you've started. It was something that I had hoped to do and never was able to. The job description got started 2 years ago, so that's been complete. When you get to that point, you get to concentrate on students. And that's really why we're all here, why you're here, and why we do what we do. I'm going to concentrate on the positive, so my best positive comment will be, I believe that with where you've gotten set up and with Chrissy, having worked with Chrissy, that you will hear a lot of, yes, I can do that. Yes, we can get that done. Yes, I can put that program together for you. That would be a wonderful positive that I would love to see, and I do believe that you can get accomplished with Ms. Lamont and with everything that she can bring to the table for you as a full-time, independent board clerk. Thank you again for all this time and for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Really? Okay, come on. That was just a joke. I'm glad
It's
you did.
I'm totally good with it. Jean Mutchie, Zone 4, Mr. Chairman, trustees. These are tough times for elected officials, and certainly not for the faint of heart. I echo appreciation for your volunteer service. Our kids and our school district employees need to be at the center of the decisions you're accountable and responsible to make tonight and throughout the length of your term. You also have fiduciary accountability to taxpayers when limited dollars are stretched and taxes continue to rise. Politics and grievances must be set aside as we try to support a school district that's in turmoil. We have a levy up for voter consideration next week. That needs to be our unified focus. The funding model for schools needs to be addressed at the legislative level and a new formula defined. But until that takes place, we're reliant on bonds and levies to supplement insufficient school funding. I think we're actually 51st in the nation for per pupil spending. We've gone down. As a former Nampa City Council member, we had responsibility and accountability for a budget in excess of $300 million. We often had 600 to 700 page packets to read for meetings every 2 weeks, a large number of meetings to attend, and a high volume of emails to read and respond to. I had to ask question after question after question, seek out experts, and understand that it was incumbent upon me to learn from others and often on my own. A clerk, whether this is a dedicated position or serving similarly to the role of the previous clerk, should be an employee of the district to provide assurance that they're held to the district employment standards. To say this position does not carry overhead is simply not true with a request for space and supplies, all at a cost to taxpayers. The clerk contract is also not market rate for similar positions. Please consider a reset and define a comprehensive strategy to reevaluate the process for this position. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Valle? Marcos? Marco?
Thank you. I just wanted to,
your name first, please.
Marco Valle. I've owned companies before, and I understand what an independent contractor is, and I hope you do too. If you read it under the State of Idaho website, it gives you an idea of what you need to be looking for and what the legalities are. One of the things that you need to look into is the right to control test. Basically, first of all, you're not hiring a person, you're hiring a company. You know that, right? You're hiring a company that you can't really control. You just basically need to tell them what the outcome is going to be, and they have to do whatever in their power to achieve that outcome. Another part of an independent contractor is the furnishing of major items of equipment. If you read the statute or the website, it tells you that they need to provide their own space. They need to provide their own, everything that they have, that they need to do the job. Another thing to consider is that whenever you hire somebody as an independent contractor, it's not a regular wage. They add to it to pay for their benefits, to pay for their company supplies, to pay for their work, to pay for their marketing. She has, obviously, this is a company that she's trying to help other boards. How much time is she going to be able to put into ours, and at what point is it going to interfere with other boards? Does she have employees? How much is she charging other boards as compared to ours? I have no idea. I don't know her. She sounds like she's incredible, though, from what you guys say. But it's good to consider that. And also it's good to consider that the will of the people. I know sometimes it's hard, especially when sometimes, we kind of make up our minds before we come, and it feels like we have all the information needed and the other people don't understand. And the media is crazy. I know the media. They twist.
Shh,
right?
They're here.
Oh, I don't care about the media. But I will tell you that sometimes you got to swallow your pride and say, okay, sometimes the information doesn't matter because the person's already tainted. And when the person's tainted, it causes more problems than you want to handle in the long run. But you guys make the right choice because you were elected to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'm going to make some comments. And going through all of these emails, appreciate everybody's comment. I appreciate you being here. I love this. I love getting public input. I love hearing from you folks. I can't say I love, but I do read all of the emails that come in and appreciate it. The taking the time, the passion. But there's a lot of questions that we're asking these emails that I want to make sure that at least we're attempting to answer these. So I'm just going to quickly run through some of these. A lot of them have already been answered with comments and discussion already. But there's one that came up a couple of times, and Brad, I'm going to direct this to you. Idaho Code 33-508. Now, I'm looking at this code here, duties of clerk, and a couple of things that came up here, and just for clarification, has to do with the superintendent shall serve or appoint someone to serve as public records coordinator. But I don't see that quote in this statute. Do you know where that might lie?
Unfortunately, I don't have my code book with me, and I don't have the entire volume memorized. So I would have to see 33-508.
Okay,
Answer the question.
I just wanted to make that, maybe we can talk about it later. It's not
We
that
can
big
chat
of a deal.
later.
But again, once again, the question was brought up, so I want to make sure we're at least addressing some of these, even if we can't get specific answers at this point right now. I do question district employee versus independent contractor. That was addressed. Man, a lot of these are just. I love that somebody had sent an email and talked about trust, and she quoted, or he quoted from a book that I'm very familiar with called The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. So I appreciate that because I love that book. Made a lot of comments on that. Okay, a lot of questions about the proposed contract. So I did make a lot of notes over the last 2 weeks. I wasn't just sitting around doing nothing. I was actually reviewing it, making some notes, kind of leaning on some experiences that I've had, and there's a lot of notes that I added to this contract. I think first time I read it through, there was a lot of standard contract language that was not included in this. We're talking about insurance limits and all that kind of stuff that definitely, if this were to move forward, that language has to be in there. Workman's comp and insurance, all that kind of stuff that needs to be in there. I'm not faulting anybody for the reason that it wasn't, but this is why I really wanted to take a look at it and have that 2 weeks to look at it and the input that I received. So that was definitely just standard contract language that protects the school district. I made a lot of notes in the area of providing office space. I don't agree that that's what we will do, but that's just my suggestion, my opinion. I don't, it comes to supplies, all this kind of stuff that I did really look through this, and before we even get to a finalized contract, this is going to be back and forth, back and forth. We want to make sure that this contract benefits us first as a district and the contractor second. It does have to be mutual beneficial because that's what a contract is all about. But I, as a trustee, am looking out for what's best for the district. The other thing is billing. There was no specific invoicing, billing procedures in this contract. And I always use the term fully burdened rate or a fully burdened service rate. Mr. Valier talked about charging over and above. We can put terms in this contract that limit the number of hours, and that's it. Everything else we give you a fully burdened service rate means here's what we're going to pay you per hour. You have to pay your employees, you have to buy your supplies, you have to do all that stuff with this fully burdened service rate, period. Nothing over and above. If there's any hours, then it has to be approved for payment, before payment, but detailed invoice. So all this stuff I was thinking about over this last 2 weeks is that's what needs to be included if and when we get to a point where we approve a contract. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I wasn't really going to go into a whole lot of detail, but I think it is important, is the rate. Honestly, I think it's a little bit high. And I think that does need to be considered. I am very, and I don't know what that rate might be at this point, but I definitely think that that's certainly open, must be open for some negotiation. The other thing I want to just mention again is Ms. Lamont has provided numerous hours of service to this district, and we need to pay her for that. And I think that's one thing that this board tonight should discuss as to what that rate for the service hours provided already. Ms. Lamont should provide us an invoice. Doesn't have to be tonight, but that's something that we need to take a look at and improve because definitely she has put in some hours that she needs to be compensated for. We need to determine what that might be. So, all that, I want to throw out a curveball here. So I think, my opinion, open for discussion, I think at this point, we should probably entertain the thought of Ms. Lamont at this point now as an interim board clerk. And we open that position for competitive selection. But here's why. We don't have to. The law clearly states you appoint a clerk. We didn't open the position for Randy as our financial clerk. We just said, you're doing it. I don't even think he agreed. He just like, all right, I'm doing it. Okay then. We'll make sure we get that in the minutes. We didn't open the competition selection for our attorney. It's the same exact thing in the same statute. But when you are looking at perception, I absolutely am hearing from you guys. Is it going to do us any harm at this point to open it up for competitive selection? No. We did that with the vacancy for the trustee, and we're going through that process. Is there anyone out there that might be more qualified than Chrissy Lamont? I don't know. But how would we find that out? Here's the other thing. As we open this up, and this is a point for discussion for the board, if that's what we might want to do, is we will have, and I have a pile of, well, I got 3 different position descriptions. I have 2 evaluation forms that were emailed to me. And so during this time, if this is the way the board chooses to go, during this time of open application process, or before, in fact it should be before, we put that description out there. This is what our board clerk will be doing. This is what we expect. This is what, and there's a lot of things that may not be able to be written in detail in that position description. That's why every description has all other duties assigned. I think that's a catch-all. But there are a lot of things that this board is looking at with this, in this current time, as to how to move forward. Best practices, training opportunities, working with the public records, all that kind of stuff. Is it time to revamp the position previously held by the board clerk? Yeah, I definitely think it's time to revamp for this position. And I definitely think it will put this district in the stronger position to do exactly what so many of you, all of you, have said. Focus on the kids. Focus on that education. So, I think that we should, again, my suggestion, and I will open this up for discussion to the board also, is we need a clerk. And Chrissy honestly has been great. She has kept us on task. She brings things up to me that we don't have a clue. We don't have, I didn't think one thing about that charter school, and then she brought up and she goes, you know, this is something that the board needs to consider. This is our busiest time of the year. Superintendent, interim, I asked Greg Russell. No, Dr. Russell has mentioned many times, this is the busiest time of the year for school districts. Negotiations are coming up. There's time limits, timelines, all that kind of thing. We need a good, effective, strong board clerk. Not just for us, this board, but for subsequent boards that will come after us. And it will set this district up, if we have a good, strong position description of what to expect. I think it is absolutely imperative that our board clerk is separate from the superintendent's executive assistant. There is that conflict of interest. And I think it's just very smart to start thinking, let's separate this. We have 2 employees. We have a board clerk and we have superintendent that we supervise. That one person, there was definitely that conflict of interest as the superintendent's clerk and the board's clerk, if you will. So that's my suggestions. I think we keep moving forward. Absolutely. We got stuff, we got business to take care of. Trustee Pearson has mentioned many times however many meetings we've had. I've lost count. I just think they're fun. I'm a nerd at that point. But it's to do the business. But we've got to get moving. We've got to get moving. So I think my suggestion again, interim board clerk, that would take a decision from the board to move that to an interim board clerk. Chrissy serves in that role. We need to have a wage to pay her for what she has provided in service and what she will provide in service for the next however long the board decides. We do a really good, solid position description, which I'm sure Chrissy will help with, as well as ISBA and whoever else wants to send me a job description. It seems I've been getting a lot of them. And then we open that up kind of similar to the same process that we did with the vacancy. and we do interviews, and you know what, and Ms. Lamont would also have that opportunity to interview for the position also. Okay? So I will open that. I hope the curveball wasn't too curvy,
Chairman,
but yeah.
I feel like there's also an elephant in the room that you haven't asked me what I would recommend, because we haven't really negotiated this contract together at all. You asked me to put a proposal together. No one else has asked me how I figured that out, or if I'm willing to negotiate, or what my recommendation would be from this point forward. But if you want to have your discussion first and then, I could do that, or you could ask me
Let's
what I
have
would.
the discussion first, because
Okay.
maybe that would give a little bit more information for you then to.
I mean, I'm ready whenever you are for my recommendation.
So let's kind of have that discussion if anyone wants to. I mean, if it's not, it's just, it is what it is, and then I will throw that open for discussion. Comments? Anyway, I'm looking down both ways, so.
Okay.
Whoever wants to, I can't see Mindy's face, so I don't know if she's going.
All right.
Are you gonna go?
Go ahead.
Me? So first of all, I want to thank the previous trustees that show up. It really is so helpful to have you guys here. One of my biggest struggles the last few weeks have been the really just tainted feedback. So it's so difficult when we get feedback and it's not necessarily even applicable to what we're doing, right? But you see that perception. It never helps. You know, you never know what the media will pick and choose to cover, and you never know how that narrative or how that due diligence will be. Most of the time it's, you know, I'm going to press with this in 1 hour, and then, you know, on the back end of it or on the back side, we're really seeing what the effects of that can be. So, like I said, I do believe, and I agree with so many things that the trustees had said in going through the contract. There are some things that we need to really clean up. Jeff pointed a lot of those things out when it comes to being specific about devices, being specific about, you know, we know she needs to be in the district office. I would preference that she have a device similar to ours just for security and other things. But I do think more discussion has to be had about the issue. One thing that's become present for me in the last 2 weeks that has never been there before is trust. And it primarily is the way that the letter was handled in going straight to the media. It's why I pointed out that timeline. That was really difficult for me because that's not communication, that's not even healthy communication, and that was linked to the ISBA for me. And so that was really tough, and I have never questioned that prior. But from start to finish, and then to receive that ISBA President 2018 letter, in comparison to that just a few days later, it really gave me some room to ponder. A lot of things have changed in the last 2 years. We live in a completely different world. And I think that we're all waiting for a normal that will never come. This is a completely different position post-COVID. We live in a completely different world. I think that for the last few years, we've gotten to see what education does when it's institutionalized, if you will. The master contract was so eye-opening for me because teachers have 2 options to move up: more school, longer time, right? And what's difficult is, you guys, I have been working my ass off in this position. I am in a school 2 to 3 times a week, a different school, meeting with administrators, meeting with principals, and you guys, some of these people are just beyond brilliant. I mean, if you could see some of the things that these guys do, and I think I say this every time because every time I meet a new one, I'm just blown away by what these principals do. It's difficult because what happens when we're all education and no community, it's that lack of business acumen, which is why my presentation was so specific, because we continue to talk about salary and not cost of an employee by the district. So it's difficult to even have this conversation because these are not apples to apples comparison. And I had always hoped that educational news would educate. So when I was running, one of the biggest things I talked about was community education. And as a matter of fact, I remember getting into a pretty big conversation with one of the teachers in my district, and he was like, you know, whose job do you think it is to educate the public? Well, really, it's all of our job, right? And so, like, when I'm reading all of the emails and I'm getting them, to me, I'm thinking to myself, we need additional education. What's hard is how do we get that to the public en masse so we even understand what we're dealing with as a whole, so that we're getting what I would consider to be relevant feedback? That was probably really long-winded. Am I still on topic? Oh, yeah, I'm out of time. So it gives me a lot to ponder when we go through things like this. It gives me reason to pause. Trust, even more recently, has become a little bit more apparent in going through this, even with, you know, the only person, I actually didn't know that Paula had resigned until I read it in the news. That was tough. And I didn't know, you know, when I'm going through this due diligence and see that Tammy had resigned in December, and I didn't know until January, and I'm just being honest, it's tough, right? It's so hard in this position now because it is so political. And regardless of whether or not we are making it political or we continue to, the amount of accusations that I get about ideology, it's just insane. It's so difficult when we read, you know, we want somebody who will care for kids or cares for our Spanish community. This afternoon, Greg and I were doing a podcast, a brand new Hispanic link into the community that this district has never had before, that I provided, right? I have reached out, the woman who campaigned against me to come to a lunch and learn, endless nights of all of these things, and it's so tough because I took this job so we could make a difference for kids because, man, I think that they're the most worth it thing we have. It's also difficult when you take a look at the fiscal impact that untrained boards and dysfunctional board and superintendent relationships in general has caused. Because what's wrong is that there's never any conversation like this that occurs. It's us or them, and it's, you guys were just one community, just one. So it's tough. I mean.
So is there any discussion on, like, the
I'm trying to give my thought process because it's hard, right? Like, I love what you're saying because I think perception is a lot. What's difficult is we continue to be led by solely perception and not reality. And it's difficult if we're going to stay in those perception modes, then are we ever going to deal with anything real? I have been dependent on Chrissy not because I'm not prepared, but quite the opposite. I'm overly prepared for this job. I watched these boards for the last 2 years, and the second that I was in and sworn in, I couldn't wait to get into schools. We don't even have protocols or procedures for the things that I'm trying to do. Greg multiple times has said, has anybody ever done some of the things I've done in your time as a trustee? Have I done some new things that, yeah. So there are just things here that we're looking to do because post-COVID, this is a different game. You know, like, and I don't mean game like game of life, I just mean it's a different role. So I love what Jeff is saying because I've heard, especially the teachers and the secretary that got up and talked tonight, right? Because it's that perception or that parent who, I think he'd left, where he said, you know, I read that in the paper and it just startled me. And that's what papers are for. That's what they do. We can fight it our whole lives or we can accept it, but I would wish that we had a community that could rise above it. And instead of getting accusational emails, we got questions, right? Instead of somebody sending us questions so they can look for the fault, questions so that we can empower you with what we're going through, what we need, and what we're doing. You wanted a board to be effective, and I brought up the $72,000 a year salary because that position is for one. We are 5. And so it's difficult to not look at the salaries that others are getting and decide how we will build this, but I would agree we're looking for something different. Sorry, lots of thoughts I know, but I also appreciate public comment because it's so helpful.
Trustee Simpson.
We spent a lot of time not talking about the board clerk agreement, and this is what's on the agenda. I'd really like to focus in and talk about it. I get it. This job is hard, and I could have told you coming in that there's going to be a ton of educating that you're going to have to do, but I feel like we're fighting the media and we're fighting the emails and trying to answer the questions in a big format. I have no problem with that, but if we could, in the future, if we're going to do that, can we put that item on the agenda and have presentations in there ahead of time? So that the rest of us can be prepared and see that, and so that the public can see it and be prepared as well. But I really want to get down to board agreement and what we're doing. And I know, Jeff, that you're suggesting something. I don't quite understand it, so I can't quite get there. But I do want to start talking about what are like, does Chrissy have some like, there's no way I'm not budging on this, things within this contract? Does she have things where, or what are things that we think like, nope, these are the necessary things that need to be in there and keep us moving forward? I don't know necessarily. I worry about restarting this process and hiring out when you have an interim board clerk helping write the job description for the job that she's probably going to apply for, like conflict of interest, right? I mean, there's all these things.
But she doesn't have to write the job
right.
description.
Well, here's what I'm saying. She has the job. And people may not like how it was gone about, but as Brooke educated everybody and let us know, we have successfully, right, appointed a board clerk.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Payment, there is an expectation of compensation.
Yep.
Regardless of the amount that was there in January. And so I would love to get into that piece and let's discuss that and see if we can come to somewhere. Because Chrissy may walk out of here and say, and the four of us are crazy, and she can't agree to any of that and just wants to be compensated for her time thus far. And please don't put those words in Chrissy's mouth. Those are Mandy's words, right? But yeah, like I really want to hear from Chrissy. Like, are there things in here that are definitely negotiable and can stay or go? And what needs to stay? And where is the hard line on those things? If I can put you on the spot, Chrissy.
I feel like the board clerk position has been on the spot since the appointment, since I came to that meeting to discuss board training. But I wanted to show, once that happened, I could have just walked away because I was there as a patron and also a resident of Nampa. I don't even know if anyone actually knows that part, but I think they should after looking at all the documents. I could have walked away that night, but yet I showed up just to watch a meeting, also be there for board training, but also, oh, yeah, I've done that. And yeah, I had my laptop, and what did I do? I sat down, and I did the job because that's the person I am. I don't walk away. And I felt like I did an interview in front of the entire community along with that, and again tonight. So I can be put on the spot. Is there any other questions prior to me just jumping in?
Trustee Pearson, did you have something?
I just want to make a comment in regards to, listening to everybody today, which I really appreciate. That was one of the changes I wanted, and I'm happy to see it, that everybody's able to comment, because this is all of us in this together, and it's not us against you. I want to hear what everyone has to say. That being said, I think that there's been a misrepresentation or understanding of Chrissy. I think she is more than a board clerk, and I don't know if maybe we can rearrange that title or how you would look at that, because you are doing more than taking minutes. I mean, you are training and consulting and advising and helping us learn how to start committees so we can get parents involved. And so there's a lot of things that are beyond, I think, what a lot of the public believes.
As legal counsel said, he does not have his code book in front of him, and neither do I. But I do believe in the code it does say that the board clerk functions to meet the needs and the discretions of the board's wants. Correct. And so I think the board clerk description is always going to be a live document, depending on if you are an experienced board team, including your superintendent, and if you're a brand new board, and I keep saying brand new, and I don't want anyone to think that means, oh, you're only brand new because you have 3 new board members with the potential. Well, and I'm thinking you might have a new one in March, so 4, but you are a brand new team altogether. So that's also another thing, and you're functioning differently. And so that would also be different with meeting those needs. one of the things I would recommend, no matter what direction we head after today, is part of my process that I included was board clerk evaluation. And I have been trying to get boards to do that for quite a while. And I see Mandy smiling because she's like, I've heard Chrissy say this a lot. Is no matter who is in the seat, but I would recommend if you go with me, we are going to be doing an evaluation process quarterly, whether I'm here that long or not. We set goals. I gave you a sample. But then also, guess what? We're gonna do something that no one has ever done before. We're gonna report back to the community because guess what? We have already aired out everything in public to build trust and transparency. So why not do the evaluation report back as well each quarter? And then you can see how to build that description if that's the route you go. But either way, we're showing the effectiveness and how we move forward. I will say having 5 new board members, so I'm gonna clout Mandy's 5, it is like herding cats. And I think it's gonna be hard to see change quickly, but I think you can still do it. But even if we're not herding cats, I would recommend we do a quarterly evaluation starting immediately.
Yeah, I agree. I think evaluation is important, and by the way, I did get that. I got another evaluation from a couple, oh, it was ISBA that sent me the evaluation also.
Excellent.
So I think that is important. So,
some non-negotiable items.
go ahead.
District equipment,
Definitely.
laptop and cell phone minimum. Do you
I'm
want to
sorry,
address
let me-
that?
Yes, I do want to address that. Let's, I think that's a non-negotiable for us too.
Yeah,
I mean, we are provided a district laptop. Tomorrow or soon, we'll be provided a district phone, which it is beyond my comprehension why that has never been provided in the past. And that would include the district clerk. Anyone who sits at the district, anyone who sits in the board clerk's position will get those items. Okay? That just makes sense to me. What's that? No.
I was thinking you should explain why we are asking.
No,
for
it's
phones.
just,
Yeah.
no, it's
I
just.
think it's good practice.
Yeah, it's just good practice. I mean, for anyone who works for a company, you get the items needed to perform your job. I mean, that's the way it is.
Yeah, I think you
So-
gotta be careful though, because you'd have a lot of teachers and a lot of support professionals that work for this district that would say they don't get what they
Well,
need.
I
But there's
mean,
a deeper,
I
there's a
understand that.
deeper meaning, and I do think it's important because everything we do as trustees
Yes, thank you.
is public record.
It's the
That's
public
what needs
record,
to be
it's the
stated.
open meeting,
Correct.
it's all that kind of, that's the communication
Correct.
of why it is imperative for board members to have the equipment that they need. And that includes a board clerk. Because the board clerk has communication with the board members, has communication with the superintendent. And so I think that is something that, and it's almost nothing nowadays for a phone. So that's a non-negotiable, I think, well, at least in my opinion. I'm not speaking for the board at this point. I think that's, so what, is there something else, Chrissy, on that? And we can just jot some notes down here because I think it'll help us move to a,
Well, and I think we have a few things to move forward. So it does say in the Idaho Code 33508 that I shall, it doesn't say may, it says shall. So that means you shall, sorry about that. The clerk of the Board of Trustees shall have such duties as such be prescribed by the board. And so I think that's why this is also like a new beginning. I don't think that any board, and we'll just say any, but Nampa board has ever went through describing such duties. And so I think this is a whole process moving forward. So that would be another item I would recommend is this isn't a one and done. You also have a brand new board member, but making a job description with duties of a board that is new, it's gonna take more than a day.
Right.
And I believe Trustee Pearson said she's already had 5 meetings. So we're averaging about 1 a week, so we can get a lot of work done, right? But I think it is scheduling that work session, doing some training, and then looking to see throughout this whole process, what are the board's needs and wants? I know I've already worked with your leadership team in the district trying to help align that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna start with, those are definitely my non-negotiable, and then we can go from there.
and I think go ahead.
And this is just kind of more of a procedural observation. I think maybe our next step, because there are so many issues to discuss, we'll be here till 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
and we still won't be done.
Only
My,
8:30.
my suggestion would be that the board nominate one of its members to conduct negotiations with Ms. Lamont and find mutually agreeable terms, and bring that back to the board for additional revision and possible approval, because those meetings will take hours.
Yeah.
And we just can't hash that out here in a public session. So that would be my suggestion to the board, is that maybe the board chair conduct negotiations, bring back a proposal that Ms. Lamont and the board chair think are in the ballpark, and then the rest of the board can look at it and make additional revisions or reject or approve.
I think that is an option. Let me take that one step further, and I'm just going to throw this out there again. There also is the possibility that we could reject this proposed contract and select Chrissy as an interim board clerk, because we need somebody. We pay her an agreed upon wage, and we take whatever time, 30, 60, 90 days. We work with her to develop a really good job description, because you're absolutely right. It's not done in a day. We have an outline of what a job description might be, but what are all the intricacies of board clerk? We can use that time frame to develop, and these are just open for suggestions. We can use that time frame to develop a really good job description, and then open it to the public, to which Chrissy would still, but if you don't want to, that's fine. That's just something that I was thinking about, as far as, because usually with contracts too, in my experience, it is the contractee that kind of puts out the information. Here's the information that we need someone to provide us, or a company to provide us. Obviously, in this situation, as a district, our needs are, we need someone to fill the role of a board clerk. Here's what we expect. Give us your price. Can you meet this or not? Did you need to say something? You sounded like it.
I don't like the idea of an interim clerk. I think we've
Okay.
already hired the clerk. I do agree, though, that we consider all the comments and things that have been suggested. And if we can work something out with Chrissy, that we should stay with Chrissy. She has put in a lot of time, and I don't think that we need to search for another clerk at this time. And with her contract, she has stated that she's a contracted for us, that we will be doing quarterly evaluations to making sure that she's, fulfilling the duties that we need her to fulfill. And if we are, not needing her services any longer, she can help us train another clerk if we decide to do that. But at this point, we've dealt with so much right now. 3 resignations between the last clerk, the superintendent, the trustee, a new interview. Chrissy has helped us a lot, and I would be against that. So.
No doubt. Please understand me. I'm just throwing options out there, because I think we're not.
So I love
these are just options to consider. So I appreciate the comments.
I love what Brett said. I love what Brett said, because I agree with you. I think that now that this has been put out to the public and we've gotten some information back and we put more information out, this may not be the last session, because we have no clue what will happen in the news tomorrow. So just so we're all clear, I don't know. Thank you all for staying. But I like that idea. So what I would love to talk really quick, because the one thing I agree with is that I agree that we need to take a look at on fine-tuning the contract. And I think that we need to also get Chrissy paid, and that puts us back into that wage amount. So, not saying that that's anything, like I'm totally open to more discussion, but I did pull, and again, I'll make this, everything I went over tonight, guys, is gonna be public. But I did my own records request to other schools, apologizing profusely after I watched what Randy went through. Anyway, that being said, I have pulled some general information to see where we lie. There was an email that came early on, which is what gave me the idea of the presentation, and it really talked about the average hourly pay for Idaho School Board clerks, and then our 3 largest districts. So I'm going to read this as it is, and again, because I use this, it will be made public. But the average hourly pay for Idaho School Board Clerk is $25.61, and they work around 20 hours a week, according to a report by the State Department of Education. Clerks in larger districts are often paid more. In Idaho's largest district, West Ada, the clerk makes $36.19 an hour, and in Boise, Idaho's second largest district, the clerk makes $32.63 an hour. Nampa is Idaho's third largest school district. So again, I'll make this public. That being said, I went to both. I don't have everything that I had wanted from West Ada's before, but I felt like Boise's really gave me a good idea of, they have a full-time board clerk. So just so you guys know, it says, district response, here's the link to the board clerk job description. The clerk is the salary index of our classified salary schedule. The position includes 7.5 hours a day, has a 244-day contract. The current rate of compensation for the position of the clerk of the board at this time is $32.63 times 7.5 hours per day times 244. They then provide us their salary index. Again, I'll simply make this all public for everybody, but with that salary index, knowing that this all includes a full benefits package, it goes all the way up to $40.75 an hour. So knowing that it's, again, we are contracting Chrissy, I would agree that the things that need to be provided need to be within like the privacy, you know, what you were saying there, I totally agree with that. But that being said, it puts us back at that, what wage do we want to be at knowing that she's being 1099'd, because we have to look at fiscal cost. So when I look at the contract, could we play with hours? Are we looking to change the job description? There's all those questions that come up, but those are some comps to throw out that are actual comps. And then again, tying back into my presentation, because I was able to get what those salaried wages were. And then again, I'll spell out what the benefit package is, because we are forced to look at cost to the district for each person. Just saying that. I know that teaching is like I know that we have teachers that stay all night long. I would tell you that Chrissy has been I have energy, and I am telling you, Chrissy matches that energy and that drive for change, and she matches my step day by day. She is available in this position. I can't always just call at noon. I have so many things going on. It might be 9 p.m. before I can actually call so that I can get to what I need to do and get some questions answered. So I feel at this point that Chrissy has been more than my expectation of this role, and I do believe that it could become something that it has never been before for Nampa.
Agreed. Do you have a suggestion?
I would rather that we talk about it. Like I said, I've done that wage calculation and comparison. West Ada is making $36.19 prior to anything. Boise's $32.63 prior to anything. The $50 an hour, just because we have to talk about it, really comes down to if you looked at a benefits package, if, again, these aren't perfect calculations. And that's why I want everything to be available, because I'm not a mathematician, but it really does fall in line at a $10.99 wage of that $50 per hour, plus we haven't had to have any training. And like I expressed, just with the recent stuff that's gone on and directly to the media, that does worry me. It worries me when anybody goes directly to the media rather than trying to find resolution. So that training to me is priceless too.
I move that sorry, were you not done? Sorry. I move that we have Jeff work with Chrissy on negotiating a contract to bring back to the board for then approval. And I think you and Chrissy set up that timeline, but in the meantime, I move that based on similar to what we did with the interim superintendent, not to say you're an interim clerk, but roughly at $9,000, 10 hours a week, the previous board clerk was being paid about $1,875, and I did round it to $9,000 even to make it easier. So I move that we compensate Chrissy $1,875 an hour for her work. And of course, if contract language changes in the negotiations, those things can be retroactive to match the contract, but to pay her for her service thus far.
There's a motion on the table.
Yeah, I second.
So it's been
motioned to pay, clarification. It's been motioned that we pay Chrissy $18.75 an hour for the work that she has done.
And will be
And will be
until
doing until the contract is,
negotiated and approved.
And then it can be retroactively.
so if it's approved for $30, then it will be retroactively paid from when she first started to
Correct.
whenever. So it'll make up, I'm not a mathematician, but roughly
Yes.
$12.
Yeah. the
$11,
difference would
25
be-
cents.
Yeah.
Can we motion it?
It is motion.
I know,
Oh.
sure, it's all good.
It's been motion, it's been
Second.
second. I just wanted to clarify. Any other discussion on that motion?
Can I speak to my motion for just a
Yeah,
second?
we're still in that discussion
Thank
on the
you.
motion.
So I'm making this motion because I do think, because we are a brand-new board. I mean, I will still tell you, I mean, I know other trustees, I think I'm going on year 7, but I still think I'm new. There is so much in this job that I'm gonna say I'm new, and Chrissy's right, we're new as a team working together, so I do think it's more than 10 hours a week.
It's much more.
There's more than 10 hours, and so my idea was thinking around the 30 hours per week, but I'm okay if, because I can see, I know it's more than 30 that Chrissy's put in moving forward since she started working with us. And I don't know exactly what that is, and I am somebody, I know we got emails about like who's gonna keep track of the time. Like, Chrissy, I trust that you're the same way that we trust our attorney, right? Like when you say this is what you're working on.
Yep.
We have to have that trust.
Yep.
Because I don't have time to micromanage Chrissy and look at her hours and be like, you gotta do this. And we can take that into much different conversations district-wide, because I know that's, nobody wants to micromanage that. But I just think moving forward, this does need to be a smaller conversation with our board chair and our board clerk, working through this stuff, fine-tuning, and the things that I need Chrissy to do are actually very different than probably the other 3 of you would say you need Chrissy to do. And Chrissy will probably attest to that. Like,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean it's always gonna be that way.
Oh, totally
So
agree.
I do think looking at those hours, but I think whatever you've worked, Chrissy, $18.75 an hour is fair.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because we can go back and then once it's, yeah, I love it.
And I solely, if people wanna do the math, I did round it up to 9,000 at 10 hours a week. I did 4 weeks in a month and 12 months in a year, and got to get that $18.75 for our previous board clerk.
Would that be a fully burdened, nothing over and above, $18.75 no matter what?
You're gonna have to help me, like.
So a fully
understand.
burdened rate would be, this is it, you're getting $18.75 for every hour that you work, period. We're not giving you extra for whatever supplies you might need, we're not gas or any, any of that kind of stuff.
Not, yeah, just right now.
It's just right
No
now.
employees, no nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think.
and I think that's part of the contract, right?
Yeah, and then when she gets that all figured out, what she's saying is this gets her paid. This is something that's a solution until we can renegotiate what it is that we need, what we're talking about, and then that will be retroactive, and that will all be public information.
I would also add the caveat of who's going to approve my invoice once I submit it. Because all the other contractors currently, fun fact, we've been researching, right, as a team, I want to say, or I've been harassing people, no, I'm just kidding, is who would approve mine? Because right now, when I do invoicing for like training, I submit it directly to the district and it gets paid. This would be, am I submitting it to the board chair for his approval? Am I waiting for each board meeting? Are we calling special board meetings? I know that sounds a little bit crazy, because it is, But those are the things you have to also identify this evening as well.
Yep, that was on my list.
Yeah, and I would say goes through the board chair and then to our
Is there
finance guy. Yes,
Randy, let me ask you that. We still have a motion and a second on the table, but let me ask that as we're still discussing this. For that process to happen as per other contracts, I know we get a lot of payments to approve in consent agenda, but no doubt waiting another, a month to get paid. So how would that work if something in this situation?
Anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Within my motion and my math brain, it would be if Chrissy works 36.475 hours, she would get paid for that.
Every hour, yeah.
Well, we could have her bill every quarter hour, or we could have her bill like attorneys bill like every minute, They
Just
send
bill
you
your
an
whole
invoice
time.
for every minute.
That would be every minute.
It's okay.
I
is
feel
what
like I'm a
was
little
saying.
more
Yeah.
lenient on my billing maybe than legal counsel, but I'm just giving him a hard time because he's sitting next to me.
And just for the record, I bill every 6 minutes.
And I did have someone ask, is this phone call costing me money yesterday? And it was not any of you. I wanted to say, Mandy,
Yes.
in your experience with me, am I generous with giving you more time than I actually account for?
I mean, probably, yeah, definitely. And that's why I trust your ability to say, here's the hours that I've worked.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say, I think I could give you a breakdown. What I have been doing is keeping track. I will say the amount of time that I put in, I never anticipated it taking as much time because I've had so many hurdles and resistance throughout the entire district. To even make it time consuming is the nicest thing to say, but I will tell you this, that I will go through my hours. I would never charge you over 40 hours a week, but I didn't hit that. But I will say there was one week, and I believe it was the week we had a special meeting, we did a Saturday, that we were there because of everything else, and plus I didn't have access to everything, so it's
Right.
taking some hurdles, but I would not ever go over that.
Chrissy, can I just thank you for being above and beyond transparent? I just, for those of you that don't know, tonight had to be massively hard. I admire you. I trust you. I appreciate you. And I absolutely appreciate you even speaking to that, thank you. Because that transparency is just amazing.
Okay, so there's still a motion and a second on the table.
Yeah, I guess, Randy, maybe would we need a date of when that would be paid in a contract, or is that as soon as it gets done? Right. Perfect.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah. I just wanted to make
Thank you.
sure if we needed to add something to the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna ask, just quick clarification, what was the motion on the table, just so you can remind
Yes.
us?
That, Jeff, that you negotiate with Chrissy on our behalf, the contract, and get that to bring back to the board, for approval. And you guys set the timeline on how long that needs to take. If you can have it ready by March, great. If it needs to be April, great. I think you take the time it needs. And then providing payment to Chrissy at $18.75 an hour for her work she's done and will continue doing, knowing that the contract will be retroactive if changes need to be made to that compensation.
So second?
I still second.
All right, motion and seconded, and I think we've had the discussion on the motion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Me, no, I'm just kidding. And we didn't include it in the motion, but I believe we approved the process of the invoicing to be submitted to the chair, and I'll CC Randy. Okay.
Perfect.
Cell phone, district phone for the clerk. Did you get one for her?
Chair Kirkman, I can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, let's make sure she gets one also. She has a district, do you have a district laptop? Okay. All right, I think we're good. Okay, is there anything else on the agenda? Oh, adjournment. Is there anything, before we end, is there any other trustee comments about, just since we have here, I mean, anyone want to just bring up something real quick, like what a great district we have and all that kind of stuff? Okay. Since there is none, then we are adjourned at 8:55. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation and your comments.